Okay, it's February 10th at 6:04, and we'll call the meeting to order. And Charlie, if you would do a roll call.
Chairperson Beecham.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Shroven.
Here.
Board Member Funger.
Here.
And then we'll note that Board Member Cadwalder and Board Member Crawford are absent.
And they had called in and talked to Charlie the reasons why they couldn't attend. So therefore, I would entertain a motion to excuse their absence.
Motion to excuse their absence.
No support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of agenda. I want to change one thing. I want to move in the action items. I want to move E up to the very first. We have a guest here that would like to talk about that, and just assume, accommodate our guest. And with that change, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the agenda with the item E moving up to the first item and action items.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now approval of the minutes for the January 13th regular board meeting.
Motion to approve minutes for the last meeting.
No support.
It's been moved and supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public comment. Sue, you're up.
I had to write this down because issue that makes me a little angry. Thank you for making time for me tonight. I've had something I've wanted to discuss for a few weeks now, but I've been too angry to communicate rationally. I'll do my best tonight. I've been a customer since 1988. For the last several years, I have used my bank's electronic payment system to pay my bills. You send me a bill, I go into my bank account online, I set up my payment a few days prior to the due date because I don't like being late, and they electronically send the funds so that you have them before the due date. In all these years of doing business with you, I've only a couple of times been late. They coincided with my husband's deployments. Life got a little insane. That is until recently, I discovered the hard way that you no longer accept EFT payments from my bank. First, let me address the new payment method you want us to use. The payment system may be something you like, but it's much riskier for your customer. Let's think about this from the customer point of view. In the past, I gave my information to the bank for my account with you. That included your name, your address, and my account number and how much to pay them. They send you money. All is good and secure for me. Now, you want me to give, not you, but a third-party vendor, my bank account information and allow them to take money out. I have no idea who this offender is, nor do I care. They don't care who I am. They care who you are, but that doesn't help me. If they take too much or get hacked or make my bank account vulnerable, they still don't care who I am. I have no power with them. I'm not going to give them my bank account information. Giving anyone permission to take money out of my bank account puts my account at risk. I don't do that with any business that I pay. I send money. I don't allow them to take it. That's how I keep my bank account safe. Who cares if they hack your info? They're not going to get anything that puts me at risk. That doesn't allow a hacker to take money from my account. Your new system makes my account vulnerable. My second point is your communication. Yes, I've seen at least one letter, Facebook post and such saying there's a great new system. Not one of those began with, if you currently use your bank to pay us electronically, that that will no longer work as of X date. If that had been the first sentence of a communication, I would have paid attention. Since I already had a system that worked great, I ignored the new system. I just wasn't interested in your new system, so I didn't read on it. This is why I learned the hard way. I'm guessing I'm not the only one. And yes, I can just write a check and be done with it. That would effectively double the number of handwritten checks I write every year, just by writing one to you every month. Are you really asking everyone to revert to old school methods? Do you need more work for your staff to process checks manually? Probably not. This is 2022. Even my 85-year-old mother pays all her bills electronically by giving her bank the information to send money. She does it every winter when she heads to warmer places. I think that this was a very bad change for this company that has done so much right for so many years. Please take time to sit in your customer's seat for a few moments and think about how we can protect ourselves from risk. And this new payment method isn't it. Thank you for listening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to address the, because I can provide some additional clarity to the situation.
Sure.
One quick question, what's an EFT?
Electronic funds transfer.
Okay.
So what is currently happening with one particular bank is customers, we do accept bank payments. That hasn't changed. But this one particular bank, if you pay through their website or go on there, they take your information and they call our IVR and they pay with a credit card.
IVR?
What's IVR?
Yep, I know what it's called.
It's the automatic phone line
Yeah.
where you can call in and make a payment. So what's happened is with the new portal, the IVR number changed. And this bank, we didn't, for one, it's a pretty uncommon practice for banks. It's the only bank that we're aware of that converts those those bank direct payments to credit card payments. And to make a credit card payment, you've got to, for them to do it, they have to do it over the phone. Well, with the change, the IVR number changed, and they didn't get that information. And quite frankly, we don't even know who to provide it to. It's available on our website, it's available on the bills, it's available on the letter, but we didn't send that bank a letter saying, if you pay bills this way, you need to update your practices, because we were not aware of it. But if you look at, specifically look at, Sue, your account, we go through and look at, and have looked at each individual transaction, and it tells you how it's paid. And it's paid through the IVR, and they provide the last 4 digits of the credit card number. And those credit card numbers change every month. And obviously, you're not paying with the credit card. So it's an issue that was a surprise when we moved to the portal, but we don't restrict. You made a comment that we should let customers know that you can't pay that way. You still can pay that way, and we still receive a lot of checks, but most of the time, the banks take those checks or take those payments and they issue physical checks, and they put them in the mail and they send them to us, and we get an envelope with, it may be multiples, it may be one, but we get paper checks and we process them. One of the things that was attractive with this option is that bank direct payment causes issues regularly because the bank doesn't have the same priority as the customer, and if you pay close to your due date, it takes a long time for that payment to be, for the customer to request that the payment be made from the bank, issue a check, put it in the mail, but the USPS system, get it to us. That process has, and it's not unique to here. It's someplace, it's an issue everywhere.
Yes.
One of the advantages of the current portal is they will work with banks to set up EFTs bank to bank, so that it eliminates that paper check, it eliminates that credit card payment, but this is the only bank that we are aware of that takes those payments and physically has somebody call our IVR, it sounds like a very labor-intensive practice for them. I think they probably have some motivations and there's some benefit to them, but that's the root of this issue. We have waived all late fees for customers that were aware of this situation, which we typically don't do because we didn't do anything to prevent that payment from being made, but we also understand that from the customer didn't do anything to cause their payment to be late. It's this third party, this bank, and how they handle it. So we tried to work with the bank. We worked with the customers that have let us know, but there's no way to even run a report that says, give me a list of every customer that pays through this bank, because it looks like a credit card payment to us. So we are working through the issues. We're actively pursuing and trying to get our portal vendor to work with this specific bank and establish this. It's called Online Bank Direct. And essentially it's behind the scenes and is an opportunity to eliminate those paper checks. So
that's supposed to be active the 15th.
I'm sorry?
It's supposed to be active on the 15th.
Perfect. But that's the root of this issue, and we will continue to work with you, the customer, because I absolutely understand that the customer has done nothing different, and from the customer's perspective, it's the same process. And now this portal is the only thing that changed, and now they have a problem. And I get where that connection is made, but ultimately we have to get the bank to do different.
So are we having and I might not have completely understood, again, I apologize, and from our meetings that I'm electronically challenged. So are we having a third, because I thought you said that we're asking their bank, her bank, telling her bank how much to pay and doing that, or
No, she
continues to do that?
Yeah, she has that control. The other option is to do the opposite of it, just like she had said. The majority of our auto pay customers, you set up as an auto pay, you put in a reoccurring payment method, whether that's a credit card, a bank account, and the money is drafted from your account or against that credit card, which understand that that's not the desired approach for some customers, but that's how all auto pays work, unless you set up so our system is not unique. It's very much the standard.
So it does both, the new port, meaning, so you can set up, so I could set up auto pay and it would and I don't even have to pay attention to my bill that we, Light and Power, talk to their bank directly, and their bank sends us
Yes.
the amount that we send them.
Yes.
Or, if that's how you choose, or, as Sue does, is she tells the bank how much to pay, and then so we're still doing
Yes, but
both.
the way that if you use your bank to issue the check and you go on your bank account, or you go on your bank account and say, pay this bill, pay this vendor, typically our new portal for every other bank, our new portal is not even in the mix, because they cut a check, they mail it to us, the girls up front process it, just like if you were to walk in and hand a check. The only reason this is an issue with this specific bank is because they take those payments and call the IVR, the automatic phone line, or the phone line that goes through it, and we have to use a third party for that line, or you get into PCI compliance issues, and it gets into a whole other bank regulatory realm that by going through a third party, they're responsible for all PCI compliance, which is all of the factors that figure into protecting the customer and protecting that credit card. But because this one bank converts those payments to IVR payments, that's the only reason that the new portal is even involved in her specific transactions. If this bank processed their payments like every other bank we deal with, then they would cut a paper check, or they would the banks would get involved and the new portal would get involved when we go to get this online bank direct where the banks directly talk to each other, and it would be the same situation, but it would eliminate the phone call where she would go on, tell the bank what to issue, their bank would send that directly to our
Without having a physical.
without having a physical check. So you can do it both ways, but this is a very unique circumstance to one bank. And like I said, quite frankly, I've never seen another bank do it this way.
And it, Lake Michigan does tell you when you put in the payment, it says whether it's an electronic or they're mailing a check.
And they don't.
Because there are places, for you, it says electronic. So if I say I want it here on the 18th, because the due date is the 21st, it will tell me that they'll process it on the 17th to arrive
Yeah.
here on the 18th.
Yes.
And it's an overnight. But with the city, they don't do electronic. So they send them a check. So if I want it there on the 18th, they'll actually pull it out of my account and process it on the 11th.
Yeah.
And it tells me that right there when I'm paying my bills.
And I don't know exactly what defines electronic, but it is a credit card payment. They are converting that to a credit
It's not
card
my
payment.
credit card.
No, it's their, no,
It's theirs.
this is pure speculation. They get points. Just like you get points if you use a credit card. We explored a commercial credit card that they're really pushing us to pay all of our bills with credit cards, and we could save a bunch of money. My guess is and it's speculation, that they're leveraging some sort of commercial credit card structure to pay as much money as possible through those cards, and then they
Thanks,
get basically a share of the interchange fees, since we pay, what do they call them, exchange fees and connection fees. We pay fees on credit cards. Well, those fees go to the credit card companies, and they're happy to share them with the people that use the credit cards because they're making money hand over fist, and they're able to share that money. So it's all speculation, but my guess is this bank is leveraging our willingness to accept credit cards without a fee to make money for themselves. It's pure speculation, but I cannot think of another motivation for them to act in a completely different manner than all other banks. I guess I'm saying all other banks. Julie, are you familiar with any other bank that converts payments to credit cards?
No.
And I mean, this is for as long as I've been in the industry, it's been an issue with banks taking time to get these payments. There's all these third parties, because the banks farm them out to a third party. So the bank is probably sharing your information.
Yeah, but
with
my
somebody
money in
else.
my bank is insured.
Yes, yes.
So my question now is, which sounds like you've been aware of it and working through it. So is Lowell Light and Power, whether it's Julie, you, or whoever, working to correct this so-called issue with Lake Michigan Credit Union? I mean, where's the ball? Is it in their court? Is it in our court?
So we've applied for the direct, but we don't know if that bank or any bank, we don't know if any bank's going to be able to allow it. It's their bank's decision. But we've applied for that 15th to allow a bank to transfer money to our bank. So on the 15th, it's going to be happening, but I don't know if this bank allows it or that bank allows it. So the 15th is when that's going to be happening. We have talked to multiple people, tellers, managers, different people at Lake Michigan Credit Union, trying to get to the bottom of it, trying to ask questions. Most people, besides one person, do not know that they pay their payments that way. They don't know, the tellers do not know that if a customer makes a payment, that they pay with credit card. We've explained it several times. One person finally admitted to everyone and had to explain to everyone that works there that that's how they pay.
So it's really, I mean, I don't want to pass the buck, but if they had the right phone number, this wouldn't be an issue. Their practices have created issues and it's unique to them. We have done what we can to inform them of how their practices are causing issues to customers. Whether or not they care enough, or whether or not they're willing to change, or whether or not the communication within the company that they use to process these is good enough, we don't know. But we, for us, there was one thing that changed: the phone number. Because the portal is irrelevant to these types of payments, we changed a phone number. That's it.
So I guess, I have a question on the process. So the phone number changed. We had no way of knowing that they were using the phone number because it looks like a credit card payment. And so,
Well, we never would have known to even look
right.
to see that they're doing things different.
Right,
We
because
could have
we
told
would
that
have
it would-
seen that we were getting
Yeah.
credit card payments, and we wouldn't have known that there was a bank doing this, because they're probably using revolving credit cards or something like
Yeah,
that.
and every number is different. Every transaction has different four digits, so it's some
Yeah.
sort of revolving credit card number.
So when the payments, so when they tried to call the number that didn't work anymore, what happened?
I don't know.
They tried for several days, is what we were told, and after so many days, I don't know what their limit was, they decided to cut us a check. Those checks arrived after our due date. Everyone that we're aware of that happened, that we've since waived their late fee.
Yeah.
Including you, I believe, correct?
Mhm.
We have,
I haven't seen it on my bill.
I would say, I believe.
Yep.
I don't say, it's a matter of, if it was brought to our attention, we have corrected it.
Yep.
Because the customer, to know, they didn't change their actions, we didn't really change
Right.
ours, that it was this other company, so
If- if-
we will continue to waive late fees if the actions of this bank cause issues for customers.
So I guess my question is, so nothing got back to the customer about, like, they never told you that, hey, we tried to send this payment, it didn't work? And
No, nope.
And we
I
didn't,
found out when I
Kind of on
came
them too.
so you kind of know when you got a late
January,
fee?
when I got my bill and it showed that I had a late payment from December due. And
Okay,
I'm like, and then I called and they told me that the payment that I had scheduled arrived 7 days after. And then I called the credit union and they
Okay.
said, well, we tried and we couldn't get it, they wouldn't accept our payment. So we sent them a check and of course being Christmas, because it was in December, it took another extra 7 days
Yeah.
to get this.
okay.
Mm.
And they never tried to call us to say, hey, what's your number, because it didn't work?
No, we had to reach out to Lake Michigan Credit Union, and someone through that Navantis or whoever the third party that takes a credit card and makes their payment, they had to then call them and give them the number. And
Okay.
so we asked, does that resolve it for everyone or just this one account? And they didn't know.
Mm.
Okay.
the
But I'm
receiving,
assuming I'm not the only customer who.
Yeah, we have
talked to,
we just have a handful of them.
yeah,
Yep.
there's a handful. Anybody that uses that bank to pay is in the same boat. And like I said, if we're
If
aware.
they use that ET, or whatever, right, so if it's the other way, we're just authorizing withdrawal, then it's not, there's no issue, right?
No. No, all other payments have worked. It's literally this
Just one that-
one very,
Yeah,
this payment method with other banks is fine. Anybody using other payment, this is the one single payment method from one single bank
Yeah.
that has caused challenges.
We don't have a direct way to register with our customers an electronic funds transfer, do we?
No.
No.
No, we
And
need
we
to go
can't-
through a third party for.
Always,
for-
because
for
of
their
financial
For their
compliance.
security
Okay,
too.
yeah.
They are responsible for the security on that and have resources to protect the end consumer. So we used to have something similar in-house that we've moved away from. It impacted some reoccurring payments, but we worked with all those customers to get it converted over to a different format.
And I'm glad to hear, I mean, as long as we know the customer is doing their due diligence, we are not punishing them.
No,
And,
because
yeah.
I mean, I like, putting myself in the customer's shoes, they did nothing different.
Yeah.
They paid their bills, they clearly got a history of paying their bills. Because that's the other issue is you get half truths from bad customers, you get the truth from good customers, and there's evidence that they're good customers, but you hear those same types of things and you go on some accounts and go, oh, you're late every month. But, so they look at it to determine, does this sound reasonable from the customer's perspective? And if it's reasonable, if there's not evidence that they're trying to abuse, the system or anything, then we absolutely work with them and do everything we can to keep them whole, to not have, any late fees or anything negative happen. But the next month's bills go out fairly close after the due date. So if, these showed up, but the next bills were already out. So by the time she got it, we probably received the check, but because we give as much time as we do, which is significantly longer than, purple laws require us to, because we give that extra time, it butts up to the sending of the next bill. So if things are resolved more than about 4 or 5 days beyond due date, it's going to reflect in the next bill. So by the time it gets all the way to the next to the customer the next month, it may not be accurate because it'll show that past due balance. At the time of printing bills, they had a past due balance.
So in the future, Sue will be able to, as she's done before, call her bank or electronically to her bank and tell them to pay this amount to, Lowell Light and Power. Now, will that mean that they're, in the future, we'll be sending it through their credit card to, so will it be sent electronically, or will Lake Michigan Credit Union be writing a check?
Well, I don't know what, that's their practices. So they're either going to, right now, they're either going to cut a check or they're going to continue to do the credit card conversion process. If they're going to continue to do the credit card conversion process, then we have to hope that Lake Michigan Credit Union has shared with their third-party vendor the appropriate number to call and make that payment. And we don't know yet whether or not our vendor will be able to establish with Lake Michigan Credit Union the electronic transfer of funds. That's a new feature of this portal. And if I had to guess, Lake Michigan Credit Union is not going to be receptive to it because there's a reason they're converting them to credit cards and going through that process. And my guess is they lose that reasoning or that motivation if things have to be done electronically. So I'll be honest, I'm not optimistic that Lake Michigan Credit Union is going to jump on board with this more efficient way of doing things and ultimately look better for the customer.
So if you, let's say that, and I'm not trying to encourage you to change, I'm just trying to get, so let's say that Sue's using Huntington. She calls in, gives that, is that then electronically sent to us or is it paper check? And the reason why I'm asking, so my next door neighbor, and I know this is before, I think it was before you on board, had issues with Huntington not writing the check soon enough, or not just the Huntington, or the U.S. Postal Service. Things got sent to California before it came back to Lowell, Michigan, from Ohio. They tracked it. It went from Ohio to California back to here. So it was missing the due date, and they were getting late fees. So I'm asking, are other banks in our new system portal, can the customer call in, pay this amount, and is it getting sent electronically? Because what happens is you're now dependent on, as a customer, you're now dependent on the U.S. Postal Service, and I've seen where maybe that's getting better, but there's been issues with the Postal Service.
Well, I think
That's kind of been an issue for, that's the way it was 40 years ago, right?
Yeah, but and right now, all the other banks are sending paper checks, correct?
Correct.
in the future, we're hoping my guess is, and it's just speculation at this point, Julie's been looking into it, and you'd ever get a list of the.
I didn't, I asked and they haven't replied back. The only thing they replied back is that the new one, the new online Bank Direct will be up and running as of February 15th.
Yeah, so as of February 15th, the hope is, this, one of the reasons that we picked this vendor is they have a very broad network. My guess is smaller community banks or smaller banks are not part of their online Bank Direct, but I would think that most of your larger banks, and they told us most of the larger banks, they are partners with, because they don't have to establish a partnership to serve Lowell Power. They have to have a partnership from corporation to corporation, and if they establish that partnership, then all of their customers that use their portal, and will benefit from that partnership. So more bang for the buck. The bigger the bank, the more likely you are to impact more customers and benefit more customers. So I think there's a much higher likelihood that your Regions, your Huntingtons, your Chase, your Fifth Thirds, your Wells Fargo, the banks that we've all heard of, or that are not, we've all heard of, like Mission Credit Union, but all the banks that have a broader footprint will be part of this, but we don't know for sure which banks will be converted electronically.
We're very hopeful.
Yes, very hopeful, because it's something that it's a major benefit to us,
Right.
because it will be a huge time savings, because the checks that they mail are a different shape, a different size, everything's a little different about the checks that they mail, so it causes problems with the check machine. It's a lot of work from a labor standpoint to deal with these paper checks that these banks pay. And further, for Lake Michigan Credit Union, we're absorbing quite a few fees at their benefit, and I think we need to probably look at is that a good practice to allow them to make large-scale credit card payments, because it can be costly for us.
Okay.
I mean, the reason why
Andrew's
we-
got a question, and then we're going to wrap this up and move on.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to add about the credit card, the reason why we don't pass on credit card fees is for convenience to the customer, right? But if it's an industrial sort of effort to farm money, that's different. I guess, so for me, I was thinking it sounds like there's kind of two lessons learned from this. So on our end, if we change that IVR number, we should probably just say, hey, send out some notice to folks to say, hey, if your bank is using this method to pay, make sure they're aware of this number. But I think the only other lesson learned is going to be the banks that do this, is that they're going to offer this to their customers as a way to pay bills, and if it takes them 7 days longer than they planned, and they don't even tell the customer or contact the person they're trying to pay, that seems like they missed something in the process.
And that's where I'm not by any means passing the buck, but I think us as a utility and the customers are in the same, we take the same stance. We don't support that method. It causes hardships for the customers. It causes hardships for us. Because it was pretty labor intensive to go in, find these, get these customers, waive the fee, and ultimately we have to rely on this third party to do what's right for the customer and for us.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, they're not doing either of those right now. They are at the expense of us and at the expense of the customer. They are utilizing a business practice that benefits them, not us and not the customer.
Yeah, well,
That's my assessment of the situation. There's a lot of speculation involved in there, but I don't know why else they would be this unique unless there was a financial gain for somebody.
Yeah.
So that financial gain is on the backs of customers.
Or maybe they think it's more secure because they're using revolving credit cards, and so maybe they have a non-financial incentive. But
Okay.
I think the part that just amazing to me that they just didn't say anything.
Yeah, and also, if you'd like to come in and we can show, if there's anything we can do to help, show your account and show where these different credit cards are, if that helps you in any way, or to provide any information we can, We are in this, we're on the, we both want the same thing. We want the bank to do a little different. So we're absolutely at the table in any way we can to help. We're fighting, we're working down solutions from our end, but quite frankly, they've not been all that receptive to it when most of their staff doesn't even realize they do this.
Right.
So,
Thanks.
Thank you for doing
Yeah.
that.
No,
Like,
yeah.
I
now to know where.
yes, and as I said,
Thank-
you're always welcome to swing by the office. We've got an open door policy and happy to sit down
I
with you at any
didn't want
time.
to come in and just yell at you.
Oh, that's all right.
Thanks, Sue.
You could have got
Thanks,
it off
Sue.
your chest and felt better, hopefully.
Nah.
No.
I-
Did you have anything else? Did you have?
Not.
Okay.
Not.
Okay,
Well, thank you.
we'll move to action items and we'll go to E.
I was like, you want to?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We've moved up E to the first thing.
All right, so with item E, it's a slight modification to the time of use policy that was adopted last month. But essentially, it's a very small change. I've highlighted the language. Keep one more, Julie, one more.
This way?
Next memo.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
And then if you can go down one more, we'll just pull this up.
Here?
So essentially, this action item is to modify the rate to include the language that requires, this is an optional rate, so we want to, codify that it is an optional rate at this point, and then also we need to create a time requirement or a commitment. If you're going to go on this rate, if you choose to go on this rate, you need to commit to a 12-month period because
Or more. 12 month or more, right?
12 month or more, at
Yeah,
least,
yeah.
yes, at
Right,
least 12
yes,
months.
yes.
And what this is to avoid is our power costs are higher in the summer. That's why, as we look at the rate, there's the on-peak rate. That's where our capacity costs, our transmission costs, the bulk of our capacity-related charges we incur in the summer. So if somebody wanted to really dive into it, without this language, they could work the system and ultimately go back on a flat rate for the summer months and go back on the time of use rate in the fall, and they would be ultimately asking the rest of that customer class to subsidize their ability to work the system. That really is, it's a very minor change, but it's a very important change to help protect our customers that choose to utilize this rate. But it's my recommendation to adopt the updated language that would protect our customers.
Any further questions? I mean, everything's the same that we approved, it was just this
One
added verbiage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If not, I would entertain a motion to adopt with the additional, same as we adopted last, but with the additional that a minimum of being on this time of use for 12 months.
Make a motion to adopt the change to the time of use charges, or subscription, what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, policy, yeah.
It's really a rate tariff.
Tariff, okay, yeah.
How's the board?
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now we have Dennis. You have anything else on
Nope,
this?
that was it.
So I think you want to talk about that.
Well, I do, yeah. After you explain this a little, I'll probably understand it a little better, but this is still a question I have, and I relate to one of the other things. I'm, for the record, Dennis Kent, 1700 Bay Drive. I've been a Lowell Lake Power customer for...
Ever since you've been in Lowell.
Another 30 years now.
We only been in 126, that was
Yeah. So,
even before we became.
but, so, my understanding, and I don't understand everything about power, is that Lowell Lake Power itself does not generate enough power to service everybody all the time. So you buy power from, off the grid, some.
So we don't, so, and Charlie can probably say it better, so we don't produce, well, let's back up. We don't, on our normal energy, we don't produce any of it, whereas
Oh.
when we grew.
We do, we don't
here-
produce it here, yeah.
Here, we own parts of
Yes.
Camp Bell Plant, Bell River, Kalkaska, so we own portions of that.
Okay.
But here, you know, when I grew up here, born and raised in Lowell, and, you know, there were machines right down,
Yeah.
generators right down here that,
I kinda
when they're
remember.
running, you can hear them all over town.
Sure.
But we do have a couple that we use for peak,
Yeah.
that we produce here in town.
Okay. Okay, so my question is, as it relates to, you know, this gets into renewable energy, and I'm just sort of looking for maybe some guide, maybe some support from this, you know, from this board,
Mhm.
is, you know, going back last year, to start with, Lowell Light and Power does a good job. I mean, you know, when we have outages, you guys are out all the time. They're out quickly, unlike Consumers Energy, who has a big service area, you know, be out for a long time. So that's, you know, I just wanted to say that in front. But, so, going back to like Consumers Energy, I've got understanding, I kind of follow this stuff a little, that, you know, eventually they're trying to get off of coal. The power plant in Lake Michigan, which is that?
Campbell.
Campbell 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Campbell 2 and 3, they
Yeah.
have multiples.
And that was going to
Yeah.
be closed like in 30 to 35, and as they transition to more renewable. Well, I just heard last year that it's now going to close in 25 instead of 35. And then, like 30 seconds after I hear this PSA from Consumers Energy that says, you guys got to use your power, you know, before 2 and after 8, because, you know, that's when the peak demand is. And, you know, I'm listening to this, I'm hearing him talking about closing a power plant. It's like, you guys don't have enough power. That's the problem. So, my question is, why are we closing power plants early when renewable hasn't caught up yet? And these power plants are just fine, they're meeting all the air quality requirements. And honestly, you know, closing coal plants in Michigan until a few other big countries clean up their act is probably gonna do nothing for the planet, but we're gonna do it for the cause, fine. But don't do it before your renewables can cover that. I drove by windmills up north by McBain a couple of years ago. And it's a hot day and they aren't moving at all. And, you know, I don't think we have the technology to do this. We're going to electric cars, City of Lowell has bought an electric car, but we're closing power plants. I have trouble, you know, figuring out how to contact Consumers Energy and have any info. You guys are customers of Consumers Energy. You own parts of the power plant. I would like to see this Lowell Light and Power try to influence those decisions and at least delay closing them until they've got enough renewable to catch up.
I guess first, I'd love to invite you in to come sit down in my office, because Craig can tell you, we spent a lot of time, I can talk for the next 3 hours on this.
Sure.
Because you hit on a lot of topics, see if I can touch some of them. So, consumers did announce, we're investors in Campbell Unit 3. We invest through a joint action agency called the Michigan Public Power Agency. MPPA is our joint action agency. There the idea of a joint action agency is economies of scale for smaller utilities. So a bunch of smaller municipals got together and invested in some coal plants. And that's where this agency came about. They help manage our power supply. But because Consumers is an investor-owned utility, they're regulated by the MPSC, Michigan Public Service Commission. Michigan Public Service Commission requires them to file what they call an Integrated Resource Plan, an IRP, every 3 years, I believe, or every 5 years. I don't necessarily remember, but included in their IRP that they filed last year was a proposal to cease the coal operations by the end of 2025, which would require Campbell 3 to shut down.
So who required that?
No, that was Consumers filed their IRP with the Michigan Public Service Commission. The Michigan Public Service Commission, because they regulate consumers, has to authorize that closure ahead of the original anticipated life. To touch on, there's a lot of topics to talk about. So another influence on coal is that some changes that were made during the previous administration, actually, in an effort to try and make it easier to burn coal, made it easier to burn coal in the short term, but now there's new effluent, what do they call them? ELG, or GEGL, effluent guide.
Discharge guidelines?
The water, the discharge from the coal plants has to be handled differently if there are any plans to operate beyond 2028. So what you're seeing is a need to make major capital investments by these large controlling interests of the coal facilities. They have to make massive capital investments to bring their plants up to the new regulations, the new ELG or EGL, the new guidelines that go into effect at the end of 2028. So we're also investors in DTE's Bell River plant. They're proposing to cease operations at the end of 2028. And it's we'll see. They have an IRP due next year. We'll see what information is contained in there. But right now, there is it's up in the air as to when Campbell 3 will actually shut down, because included in the IRP is some pretty extensive contingencies to do that. There's some, and we can get into the weeds if you'd like at some point, but
I can do that in your office.
yeah, they got some hurdles
Yeah.
to overcome to get that shut down. But as it relates to pricing and critical peak pricing, they're essentially, and I don't want to speak for consumers, a lot of this is consumers' motivations, and I would hate to try and speculate on their motivations, but they're the critical peak pricing. So I'll speak to ours and our time and use rate and how we designed it, and that may draw parallels to consumers without trying to determine what they did. But ultimately, there's a lot of expenses that we incur to serve that aren't related to the actual generation part. So we owe money to ITC, or there's MISO schedules that are based on capacity costs, transmission costs, and those are all based on your highest demand, which typically, or highest strain you put on the system, which occurs in the summer. So your critical peak pricing, or our on-peak pricing in the summer, is a reflection of our increased costs and aligning how we incur costs with how we collect those revenues to try and eliminate subsidizations across customers. So if you don't use any power when it's most expensive for us, yeah, most people do. That's why it's more expensive. But some people don't, and those people that disproportionately or proportionally use significantly less than others are actually subsidizing the customers that do, because when you set a flat price, some of your costs are going to be above that price, some of your costs are going to be below that, and what our motivations, which I can speak to, are to really align how we incur costs and how we collect revenue from the customer to try and be as equitable as possible. The customers that cause us to incur costs are proportionally billed their piece of that. And that's the motivation behind time of use rates and peak pricing. It's just that alignment of costs and revenues to try and minimize subsidization inside of a rate class.
So it's kind of like if you had a toll road or a toll bridge and you charge more during rush hour because you had to size the bridge to fit rush hour traffic.
Yes.
And you encourage people to use it at different
Yep.
times.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the other, I'd love to dig into a lot of the other topics that you talked about as far as renewables, and I'll refrain here because a lot of them it's a very opinionated topic, and everybody has opinions, but I wouldn't want to share any opinion, could be misconstrued as a fact or a representation of this board or anything, but be happy. I always have an open door policy.
I guess one thing though, so what's our ownership in the Campbell, like?
Oh,
we're
it's,
like-
it's minute. I mean, so
That's-
Campbell 3 is what, an 800 megawatt
800,
system?
yeah.
Our individual piece is 6.4 megawatts, 6.5.
So we're a little
Like
less than
half a
1%.
percent.
Yeah.
Essentially.
So our piece is, in MPPA's piece, do you know what MPPA as a total is?
20%.
20%. Yeah, so
All the rest is consumers?
yeah. So, and that's
So
that's how the vast majority, well, they,
5%, I believe.
it's not much. Even MPPA's, because there's also Wolverine Co-op has an ownership stake in Campbell, I believe. But the opportunity, unfortunately, the opportunity to have an influence was at the MPSC case, and I believe all interveners or all testimony has already been heard by the Public Service Commission. I can say at the agency, we were an intervener, but did not submit any testimony.
So, do we want renewable, do we want to save the earth? And, you mentioned, and I would say, yeah, we do. But at the same time, we're not, at least I'm not, and I think the board, we're not thrilled with Campbell closing this,
No.
our bonds, we're just finishing up our last payment.
We just did.
We just did, and so we were looking at, oh, okay, now instead of the money going there, we'll be able to invest more into the community, into the infrastructure and everything, and now, all of a sudden, now we're, with Michigan Public Power Association, we're having to, if that should occur, we're having to scramble and figure out how we're going, where we're gonna get the power and all those different things. And, an example that we use, and Traverse City is part of the Michigan Public Power Association, but, their board has set real lofty goals, and they want to be 100% renewable energy by, it's a very short window. We've talked here, renewable energy is great, but it's also currently more expensive, and so there's, all of a sudden, if we said, we're gonna go 100% renewables next year, everybody's bill would be, I mean, and so there's a balancing act that we have to go through, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. I mean, and you can share, so we have investments in renewables, solar, wind,
Landfill gas, biogas.
biogas, natural,
Those are,
Natural-
we don't have any hydro, don't have any batteries, but those are our renewables.
and then, and then the others is our coal and our converted these to what we have for peak to natural gas, and so we're trying to still maintain a diverse portfolio.
Yeah, which is probably a good idea, but before we go bigger, we
Yep.
go all the way to renewables, we need to make sure that they can actually generate the power, so we're going to
Yep.
expect, in particular, if we go to electric vehicles, it becomes a bigger part of it.
I'm probably the wackiest greenie on the board, but even I wanted us to get our money's worth out of Campbell 3.
Yeah, we do. We've made a substantial investment in Campbell, and we were counting on
Yep.
having a debt-free power source for, I don't think anybody quite anticipated that it go all the way to 20, Casey, what was the original date? 20, was it 2039, 2035?
2039, yeah.
I think it was 2039. It was a 14-year expedited process. I'll also say, it's not a foregone conclusion that Campbell 3 is going to close. The contingencies in the IRP are really, they have to be accepted. Contingencies have to be accepted for it to be feasible. But you'll see that consumers is pushing. Their other marketing campaign is, we need you to help conserve. Period. not just during on-peak times, but we need your help, and they're counting on meeting their load through energy. Part of a piece of their load, they're counting on achieving through energy efficiencies and not needing to supply that power. Whether or not they have the ability to achieve that, that's their business, and I would not want to speculate on that piece of it.
Sure.
Anything else, Dennis?
No, that's what I got.
I'm happy,
I'd like to take you up on it.
yeah, absolutely.
Please do.
Card?
I don't have a business card with me.
I can walk down with them and get one for you, because your office, I can unlock your office and get one.
Yeah, I don't know where,
Near your black notebook thing, or?
it's in a little card holder, I think, up on my desk.
Okay, I'll
So,
try to help.
And I'm just gonna, truly, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, we really do enjoy, and think it's, a positive thing to have guests. Because normally, I mean, unless we've cut down somebody's tree by accident, normally, we don't have very many people attend our meetings, and I think, and we do things a little bit different than the city. The city would take your comments. We, as a board, want that, I might, as a chairman, might cut something off at some time, but we like that, having that interaction and trying to give you an idea or answer those questions and not just, I'm not saying whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's just we do things a little bit different than the city. So I would, anytime, encourage you to,
She's laughing. That's a good sign.
thank you. Okay, we'll move on.
I did a little tricking.
I'm glad you're okay.
Dennis, Tyler Cat.
Sorry.
I'm sitting in our big driveway.
Son?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Hey,
So,
that's longer head.
I do.
Yeah, exactly, that's what, yeah.
I do, I was longer yesterday. But, I understand that the peak load scenario and, a good analogy with tolling, but, the thing with tolling that we do know too is, actually, it's not equitable because what they end up doing, converting people to neighborhoods, and you end up getting, the situations in their neighborhoods. So is that really equity?
True.
That's kind of the thing here as well, is I feel like you're gonna burden somebody with these rates, even if they are optional. I recall Consumers Energy made it optional, but then they said, well, you're gonna have to pay a fee for not opting in, and that fee keeps going up. And that's what I feel is this, so I'm really kind of against doing this. And I know you're for it, you don't have to accept that, but I am against doing this. I think we really need to focus on just communicating that to our suppliers where we can, that, there are consumers here that are against this. And they don't want to see their rates peak just because we're, switching to renewables so quickly. And I'm on board with that. I just think we need to be prepared to do that, especially if the rug's going to get slid underneath us. We're going to have electric vehicles. We're going to have charging stations for those. There's going to be so much demand on this. I don't think we're going to be prepared.
I'll just, one comment I'll make is our time of use rates are completely separate and aside from any renewable. If we were burning 100% coal and 100% of our power came from coal, we would still implement time of use rates.
Okay.
Because it's about an alignment of our cost, not where those costs come from, but even if you burnt all coal, your cost would be higher in the summer, and we would need to reflect those costs. To be equitable, we would need to reflect that increase through the summer because it's capacity transactions that cause. But again, I'd be happy to sit down with you, but for us, the shift to renewables or consumers' announcement of closing Campbell was not a factor in it. It was a strategic objective that the board established before there was any IRP. It really is for us. And I won't speak to consumers' business model because an investor-owned business model is very different than the public power business model. We don't have a profit piece of our rates are designed to recover our costs, make sure we have cash reserves for a rainy day, an appropriate level of cash reserves, around 120 days of operating cash, and then the remainder gets invested back in the system. There is no salary tied to our financial Success, our financial success is ultimately the customer's financial success. And if our rates were too high, we would not give them to investors, we would give them back to the customers. Our investors are our customers. I say it a lot, we don't have any money. We are the.
I work for government, I
Yeah,
understand.
we are yes, we are the stewards of our customers' money. And we embrace that. So our motivation is truly the equitable treatment of customers, because there's no gain for any individual, no board member, no company gain. There's nothing to be gained by pulling one over on the customer. So really, our motivations are different. I won't speak to consumers. I am obviously a very big fan of public power. I believe in the business model. I believe in the value that the public power provides the public power communities. It's very different than the investor-owned model, and I don't know the ins and outs of that. But
Well,
again,
I appreciate your explanation, appreciate your flexibility and agenda to accommodate this, but I still do feel the other way. Because the equitability piece is, what do you tell people who can't, if the rates go up in the summer, they have to run air conditioning, vice versa, they don't have heating, they can't have heating everywhere for gas, so they have to use space heaters or something else. What do you tell them? You gotta pay more in order to basically survive? It seems inequitable.
Okay, so, and we don't, so we've actually, we've had the study, came in, and just so you know how we're going to implement this, is there's a test few, myself being one, Tina's another one, there's a few people that are going to be on that.
Yes.
And what we've done is, through the study, what we've seen is we've done comparisons of what it would be, what our bill would before and after, on time of use and not. And what happens is there is what we found with the study, and again, that's why some of us are actually going on it first. There was minute difference between the time of use, again, because what happens is in different time of the year, you're paying less. And so if you took one moment, you'd see where, yeah, I'm paying more. But if you looked at a 12-month period, the study was.
Well, in theory, over 12 months, if you don't change your behavior, you're gonna pay the exact same you paid the old way.
No.
Not quite. You will, if you use during on-peak times, your bills will go up. But when you talk about equity.
No, over the 12 months though.
Over the 12 months, the rate was designed for Lowell Light and Power as a whole.
Right, so if you're an average customer.
Yes.
And you don't change your behavior, you're gonna pay the exact same you paid the previous 12 months.
Yeah, but there is no average
Right,
customer.
but if you're a
Yes.
customer that consumes more during peak times compared to other customers,
Yes.
Yes.
then
So-
that's the part
So-
that we're
so
trying to
from-
kind of
Yeah.
use that both as incentive, but also trying to kind of account for the fact that our system has to be sized to accommodate a peak. Just because if we can't, then power goes out, right? So
I would also argue that equitable is paying for the benefit you receive. So, as a customer, if your load shape does not leverage the electric system, if you happen to be a third shifter or something and you sleep through the day, and I've never worked third shift, so I don't know exactly when they are, but if for some reason you're a customer whose lifestyle does not result in energy consumption during the hot parts of the day, you are subsidizing and paying for somebody else's ability to overuse the system during those peak times. So I would argue that the time of use rate is more equitable because it gets down to your individual consumption patterns and aligns how your bill is now highly aligned with how we incur costs.
In the
So
market.
we're asking you as one individual customer to compensate us for a more accurate reflection of the cost that we incur to serve you. And then from the next customer, so each individual customer bill is based much closer on the cost. I would argue that's equitable.
And I'd like, I don't want to take up everybody's time, so I'm just going to say my two remaining comments real quick. You're right, there's the equitability piece, and everybody subsidize somebody else. You do that through insurance, home insurance. You do that, people who live out on the coast to get flooded. So there's already going to be that. I do that when I get decongested. I have to fill my ID because somebody was using it to build meth. You know, there's always something like that. So I do not, that's why I do not feel that way about this very much. And I also feel that this opens the door for, 10 years down the road, as the board changes naturally, maybe some stay around. Well, maybe we just change the rates and make them higher again. And then there's no going back. So it's that slow progression into this. Let's monitor what people use. And then lastly, as we go more into telecommuting, people who are using power. We're at a high inflation, 7.5% is the latest number from last year. I think it's the last thing people need, just more rate increases, more price increases. So I just wanted to be on the record saying that, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Yes,
Thank you.
please reach out and come sit down with me.
So let me just, so what we're doing that, and then it will be a opt-in
Yes.
program. You can, if you don't want it, you won't. And then over a period of times, it will be, we'll probably change to an opt-out so that everybody would be on unless you opted out. And we will continue, at least this board, and you are correct, boards change, but as long as this board, if you look at our is to be safe, cost effective, and again, we're a nonprofit, we're gonna and we get audited, so we're not, do I anticipate that energy prices increase? Yeah, I do see that overall, but we are going to always be, do our best to maintain the most cost-effective for our ratepayers. And I'll just leave it at that.
And at that, our average customers' residential bills are somewhere close to 20% lower than comparable rates on a different system of your choosing.
Yep.
Let me just make one more comment about the tolling question. Right, correct. Michigan doesn't toll, the legislature's directed them not to do a study on it, it's coming out
That could change.
somewhere after the election,
You're right.
so that nobody has to jeopardize their political career, because it's watered down. But you're right, there are peak periods of time where the demand on the highway system is higher. And therefore, there are models where you charge more, maybe encourage people to drive at 2 in the morning when nobody's on the road, except for the cars. But the problem with that, and it relates to electricity also, not everybody in the models kind of go along the way with, home, work from home also, but not everybody can control what time they work. And, and so you're kind of punishing somebody because the boss says, I gotta work from 8 to 5, I gotta drive in the peak period. They don't have the option to work, 12 to 8 or whatever. And that's where there's,
Are you punishing them, or are you asking them to pay their fair share? From a power supply standpoint, because if you're not asking them to pay their fair share, you're asking the other customers, because again, we don't have a profit piece. So everything goes back to the customer. There's no eating into profits for us, where for an IOU, there is eating into profits. But, doors open. I'd be happy to dig into the study and show you kind of where our numbers came from and show you where we get our costs and why we feel it's important to align those revenues with how we incur costs.
I have less of an issue with what Roll Power is doing than I have with the overall, it's kind of hoping that maybe that's an influence over consumer energy making not the best facility.
So, and I'll just throw out one, will it change how I do some things? Maybe. Maybe, and again, all these little things do eventually add up, but will I program my dishwasher to come on after 11 o'clock instead of, as soon as we're done with dinner, load the dishes in it and turn it on? I mean, there are other things,
There are things you can.
other things that you can change your habits in order to reduce the amount of electricity.
You're right, I
So,
mean,
yep, so anyway, we need to,
It also reduces the costs of us upgrading the system down the road to provide for more power at these peak times. So, I mean, there are benefits in there. Anyway,
okay, moving on.
Thanks for your comments, by the way.
but thanks for
Yeah.
your comments, yeah.
Stay here and listen to some of this.
You're welcome
Welcome
to. We're
to.
gonna be here a while, but you're welcome to stay.
They, you know, at the council meetings, they're always making snide remarks about how long I have our meetings, so.
We went almost to 9 o'clock
I was gonna say, I wasn't sure if I was getting home.
safely.
This moment, strategic plan.
Update to strategic plan action items.
Yeah, so each year, the staff gets together and we look at the strategic plan from a really from a staff standpoint, we focus more on the action items list that comes with that strategic plan. But as you've all have reviewed the packet, included in your packet is a copy of the current plan, a copy of some proposed changes and updates to the action items list. I also included some additional details to maybe avoid getting way down in the weeds with some of these items. And then also, the last item there is definitely way down in the weeds, the risk matrix that we use to evaluate our voltage conversion projects. I included that not necessarily to discuss the individual components, but to share with you how staff is taking the strategic direction laid out by the board, applying it, and being calculated in how we choose to invest our capital dollars back into the system. So that's really there more for just kind of an idea of how we get to where why do we propose the projects that we propose, and that serves as really a foundation of all of our voltage conversion projects. And as we complete phases of that project, we reevaluate it and make sure that we're maximizing the benefit to the customer and maximizing the benefit to the grid with each dollar that we spend. So I'll just dive right in. I guess I'll start with the actual strategic plan. Last year, the board chose to make a couple small updates. Staff, as the strategic direction is set by the board through board direction, staff doesn't have any recommendations for any changes to the strategic plan, but if the board would like to explore any changes, I think we can pause and have that discussion. If there are no proposed changes to the document, we can move on. If there's no discussion, but I guess I will pause for a moment and defer to the board members on the actual review of the strategic plan document itself.
So, I don't know if we, as a group, we talked about it, but, so are we looking at, so the gentleman that did our workshop also facilitates strategic planning and everything? What was your?
That's really up. I think that'd be a great discussion for the board to have. My thought was I shared some notes with you. Get those that set of notes and any changes you want to make out to the full board, and then maybe next board meeting when we've got able to have full participation, tackle some of those potential discussion questions. But as it relates directly to this, I did propose to in my notes, does the board want to look at bringing in a facilitator and adopting and building from the ground up a new strategic plan? Most places have some sort of trigger or some sort of time frame to say we want to reorganize or redevelop a strategic plan every so many years. It has been, we look at it regularly every year and make updates every year, but if the board wanted to have that discussion, I think there's a discussion that could be had about bringing in a facilitator to help facilitate that. And currently, the company that we brought in to do the governance training is working with some West Michigan utilities on governance training and on developing a strategic plan. And it's a pretty, I think it's pretty extensive exercise. It's about, I think it involves typically 3 trips to the utility. So it's definitely a pretty extensive process, and it would allow us to leverage an expert in this field. We don't have a really detailed, in-depth skill set in developing strategic plans. We've all been involved in them and all know what they are, but it really is a specialty to facilitate the development of plans.
So for the rest of the board members here, I mean, when I got on the board, we really didn't have a strategic plan written out, and Greg Pierce initiated what we have currently. And at the time, I mean, it was a step forward. It seemed, and maybe simplistic is good, but it was, you know, it was.
And I think that's where the board, you know, has to decide on to what level. You know, there's a certain level of, or you get a point where diminishing value of returns. You know, you put in a very. You have to look at how this document is used, what it's going to guide, in what level of detail does the board think should be in a strategic plan to provide the appropriate level of guidance for staff, to propose ideas, to bring topics to the board, and to help frame how we make strategic decisions throughout the month, throughout the year. I think you could get more you could get more detailed, you could get less detailed. I think one of the takeaways that I had from the facilitator was the board has to determine what is the appropriate level of detail to effectively govern. So if the board feels like this is, guiding our path in doing an adequate job at that, then it may not be necessary. It may be okay to continue just making tweaks. But if the board thinks that there's value in taking a step back and building from the ground up because enough environmental influences or other influences, or there's enough change in the utility or the direction of the utility that it would warrant a ground up. So that really is something for the board to have a discussion on.
Yeah. When Steve was, I think his name was Steve, right?
Yes.
Was talking to us that day, I think this is a good start, but it'd be nice to be able to get a set of eyes on it. And is the board going in the right direction? Do we have things covered? Because there's a lot of things he covered that I think maybe not be in this, but maybe should be added or deleted some things. So that's what I got out of it for you guys, I think.
I have to say, I mean, when I first looked at this, when I was going through my orientation, I thought it was a little light. It didn't have any meat to it. And so it would be, I think it would be beneficial to expound upon some of these things. And
Yep. I think that'd be a great conversation.
Yeah.
I not to just cut that piece off, but
That's fine.
I do think that's it's a substantial conversation, and it would be a significant decision for the board to make. But from staff's perspective, we do utilize the document. What's there is utilized. I regularly reference components of it, but I don't think values don't change. So, or well, they do over time eventually, but for the most part, there's pieces of it that would transfer to any model, I guess, but there's just different varying levels of detail. At some point, it turns into a document for a document's sake.
Right.
But there's always balance in everything, in what's the appropriate balance in an effective document to guide strategic decisions. And I think the industry has changed quite a bit, that it would be good to do a periodic refresh and look at it from the ground up, especially if you look at the last 3 to 5 years and you look at what we're facing in the next 10. the industry's going to look very different in 10 years. I've had a lot of industry experts say the next 10 years may be the 10 most transformative years in the 120-something, 130, 150-year history of electric distribution, generation, transmission, and distribution.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Just one quick other thing. I think it was probably adequate for when you guys first went through and did, because you didn't have one before.
Right.
So you graduated to having one, and it's what you needed for a while. But I think now it's time to graduate to the next step.
Yeah, because I think some of these things in there are things that Charlie does as a management thing, and maybe not necessarily need to be a strategic plan, but they need now to move to his management style, and you guys focus on what you guys need to focus
Yeah.
on.
Okay, let's move on.
all right, so we'll get right into the meat and potatoes. I'm going to go all the way down to proposed items, and want to highlight just some proposed items.
Am I there yet?
There it goes.
This page, Charlie?
Keep going down,
Okay,
down, right there.
okay.
So fewer changes are being proposed this year. I thought I'd just touch on each new item real quick. Really the first one is the annual review of step-down transformer risk matrix. It's just a guiding. It's really a guiding document and serves as a foundation. So I think we should have, because it serves as a guiding document and how we're going to invest capital dollars. I think staff needs to be reviewing that on an annual basis, and sometimes multiple times within a year. As projects are completed or there's substantial changes, we're updating it. So that's really, there's not a whole lot of meat in that item, honestly. But it has led us to our next major capital investment project that we're proposing, and that's to provide a redundant feed on the east side of town. And that was incorporated into the old project list, but we only want to tackle kind of one phase at a time, because what we found is the projects that were laid out, you could get through 2 of 5 phases, and it dramatically changes the risk factors involved in that area, and to continue to invest those capital dollars there could result in investment in an area that doesn't, the need has changed enough that those dollars could be better utilized in other areas. So I only have the one next feed, or the one next item, but ultimately that is when I came here and did kind of a overview of the system and started just kind of getting my feel for it. The 2 things that really stuck out from me, from my perspective, and they were the risk matrix further kind of was evidence of what I thought, was that our transmission line is a major asset in a potential location for vulnerability in the east side of town. Currently, the east side of town is fed by a set of wires that runs under the river, and we just need a redundant feed. It will also serve as the foundation for future voltage conversion projects over there, because it'll be bringing a new source of the higher voltage, the 12470 voltage, to that side of town, and we can use that to convert customers over. So it's a dual purpose. It will serve as a tremendous asset from a reliability standpoint. It'll also serve as the foundation for progressing with getting some voltage conversion done over there, which was, the combination of that step-down transformer being the highest priority step-down transformer and a need for a redundant feed over there, clearly to staff made that the next clear priority. So that's why we're proposing to include that this year. And from a strategic value to the utility, it really at the highest level supports our mission of providing reliable, safe, cost-effective power.
And that's the project that's starting on the south side of Jackson Street over by the river.
Yes.
Coming up Jackson Street, going down North Street, staying on the south side of North Street because there's less trees?
Yeah, and I don't think, we don't have a firm, this is the path we're gonna take.
Okay.
But
I think
I
that's
don't wanna
what
speak for.
Ryan was saying.
Yeah, Ryan has it in his head, and I
Yeah.
think, Ryan is not feeling well tonight.
That's fine.
Tonight, so I told him I'd cover it, but I cannot cover it to the detail he could. But yes, we have the conduits under the river.
River, yeah, those-
That was the deal that the board approved,
Mhm.
adding the additional. You guys are all shaking your heads, so.
Yep, no worries.
You're all
Sticking out
yeah.
around, they were.
But we'll be using those existing conduits and pulling that new service under the river at Jackson Street and advancing it up into town and getting back to the interconnection point with the other 1247.
Yeah.
So, and I'm seeing shaking from everybody else. I've not misspoken for Ryan at all.
Nope.
No, I'm pretty.
I just don't want to lose 7 nice trees in my
Yeah,
yard, so
and-
going
and
to the
that-
south side.
And that will be, a priority to make sure we work with our customers and make sure that the benefit that all receive is not disproportionately shouldered by a few.
Yes.
So distribution-related projects and items, something that we would like to explore and see value in is how to better utilize, or not how to better utilize, but how to take advantage of additional capabilities of our AMI system for our very high-load customers. And this is really just making sure we are that leader in technology, make sure we have the appropriate level of understanding of our most critical customers and their load needs and their impacts to the system. So, that's a pretty important additional step in the AMI process. And then we go down to administrative and financial items and projects. Really, the big 2 additions that are pretty big changes from the last time we reviewed this last year is power supply planning for the retirement of coal. We have less influence on it than a lot of other items because we're minority partners with consumers in DTE and the coal assets. So currently coal supplies a large percentage of our energy need and a large percentage of our capacity need. So we have gaps to fill in both of those. Don't necessarily know at this time exactly what holes we're trying to fill. We're waiting on the MPSC case, and we're going to be waiting on DTE's IRP from this year that will hopefully shed a little bit of light into their plans for Bell River. And then the pursuit grant opportunities is a major strategic focus with the announcement of I'm going to see if I can get it right. In Infrastructure Investments and Job Act, the IIJA, and we have participated in a lot of every opportunity we can find. We're looking for grants, and I think this is relying on grants is very difficult for a utility because we typically most of the grant opportunities are few and far between for ones that we qualify for, and the likelihood of us getting them has never been as high as it is now. So from a strategic standpoint, we see a tremendous opportunity to bring IIJA dollars to our community, and that is going to be, and I put 2023 timeline, we don't know what the end is. There's not been enough guidance provided to tell us, how programs are going to be rolled out. There's a laundry list of programs. And Casey, I don't know if you looked at how many programs there are just for electricity, the energy sector, but there's hundreds.
Yes.
Well, yeah, one thing I had a conversation with Mike Burns is getting a grant writer for the city, and maybe that's something low-lying power in the city could look at, a professional grant writer. Because we really lack that, at least on the city staff, and I don't know where you guys stand with that, but I think there needs to be maybe a joint thing that could happen.
I actually talked to Mike about it.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I talked to Mike about it today.
Okay.
And I don't think either of us see it as potentially I don't want to speak for Mike, but we've identified a partner that's a turnkey solution And our requirements are gonna be very different than the city requirements. So trying to find a grant writer that can meet the needs of both parties is gonna be very difficult and extremely expensive to get that. I mean, even your, if you look, I participate in our APPA has a bunch of listservs where public power companies from across the country can get into message boards essentially. And I'm familiar with it just because they're close to me where I was at previously, that are very large utilities, probably bigger than any in Michigan from a public power standpoint, are pursuing contracted grant writers. It's going to be a very difficult, or a very complicated landscape to navigate. But we are also, we want to continue to explore opportunities that we might not have to go through a third party and may be able to do it in-house. I actually spoke with Craig Monday after the meeting, and one of the nice things for us is we qualify for small utility money. So in the IIJA, they have earmarked certain amount of dollars to go to small utilities, less than 4 million megawatt hours a year in sales. So that pot of money will be made available and won't face competition from Sacramento. And Sacramento's enormous. Nashville's enormous. Memphis is enormous. Boston's enormous. These big utilities can outperform any small utility, no matter. It's almost impossible to compete with them. But we're not going to have to for a lot of money. We're also, we don't know the details, but preliminarily, it looks like we're going to qualify for rural and sparsely populated earmarked funds because, like I said, we're waiting on guidance, but right now we're being told that if your community is less than 10,000, you'll have access to these earmarked funds. So we think that some of those funds will be less competitive, and there may be opportunities for us to work with the city. But the other thing that we found out is there's grants to hire people to write grants. So there's a potential to leverage truly a team of experts through a third party that offers a turnkey grant writing, engineering, regulatory, across the board. And if we hired a grant writer, we go out and hire the best grant writer, and you can't replace a team that can do grant writing, engineering, and compliance requirements. So if we can get that through a grant, that's best case scenario. Find a grant to pay for somebody to get you more grants.
Yeah. I agree.
I just get excited about that idea.
But there's a lot of excitement around the IIJA. I also think it looks like a lot of like road funds and stuff like that is going to funnel through the state. And a lot of that's the last webinar I sat through one that the White House put on. They were talking that a lot of these grants are not actually going to have to be applied for. They're going to be given to the states, and the states will interject them into formulas. And I don't know enough about the city government to understand how road funding works or anything like that, but if the city receives money through a state formula, there's a good chance that grant money will just naturally funnel down to the communities. I'm going to have a tough time keeping track of electric, so don't hold me to anything about roads.
Okay, that's
That is my understanding, is a lot of the funds will just roll right through. And that's, when I talked to Mike today, he was under the same impression, I believe.
Okay.
So I don't want to speak for him.
That's fine.
But yeah, I believe that he was kind of had that same understanding. So for items proposed to remove, we talked about these at the review in November. We're just proposing to remove the island mode of operation following Casey's extensive school lesson on everything, all things island mode related. The voltage conversion plan, I'm just proposing to take these off of the document because it's really just based on board feedback that they've lost meaning, and there's individual components. So we're not abandoning any of these. We're just taking a little bit different approach. Everything that we do will be incorporated into one of these projects, but we also aren't going to be able to tackle these projects as a whole. We're going to have to roll them out in phases, like we did dock addition, like we're proposing to do over here. So nothing is changing, and we still have those. Those are great resources. You know, and if grant funding comes available, that's the first place we're going to go to how to maximize our dollar value.
So I personally, as compared to removing them from the document, this again is just me, I'd rather create a different heading and put those down, because I know what you're saying. So if they're gone, not on this, and something happens, what's the likelihood of that? But something happens to everybody in this room, then somebody new has to come back and find out, you know, and learn everything. And so for me, it's create a different heading. Because if you don't want to put them into this and it looks like they're never going to get addressed or whatever. But again, so I'm looking at, and you're describing a little bit that pieces and parts of it will happen, but like the South Hudson to South Division, like the Project 109, I mean, what's changed it from being a high priority to now all of a sudden we're completely removing it?
Well, you go down
So the
1,
matrix.
2, 3, 4, yeah. To me, and we're happy to keep them there, because again, we're not abandoning them. We're just taking a different approach.
That-
But everything is captured in this
Does that make sense?
document right
We
here.
would have called those parking lot items. We're gonna park it, not do anything, but it's gonna be,
Yeah, and we can absolutely do that. I'm making that recommendation just on the feedback of the board from a staff perspective. We still have the detailed system study that GRP did that outlines the details of these projects. I would hope that worst case scenario, and everybody's gone, somebody that came in and replaced us would be looking for documents like that. But we can absolutely park them somewhere. But I was just making the recommendation based on you know, the fact that the board has said on multiple occasions that those project numbers aren't real meaningful. And you know, when I look at this document, it's about what makes sense to the public, what makes sense to the board. But we don't, you know, we use the strategic plan action item list to help plan, but I could recite off the top of my head kind of all the components or the pieces of it. So it's not necessarily I don't want to say it's not a tool for staff, because it absolutely is, but staff will take the action items list and automatically know that there are additional resources behind it. But yeah, we can.
And I can be convinced differently. I mean, I'm not, you know, it's not,
But yeah,
it's not dictatorship. I guess I'm saying it because I want to hear what the other board members think.
Well, the thought, I kind of noticed that too, and I was wondering about it because, you know, I'm also kind of wondering about the nature of ongoing things, right? Because I kind of see this as an objective we try to achieve, not something we try to sustain, right? I mean, that should be just part of our operation. But it seems like we should still have a voltage conversion plan of what's the time frame, right? So when do we anticipate everything will be converted? If it really is going to be, let's say, 20 years, well, then we can put
I would
something like that. But it's still the intent that we get
Yeah.
everything converted, right? And so
I would let the risk matrix determine, does it need to be converted? Because if it doesn't serve a strategic value,
Mhm.
what are we doing it for? Because there's one, if you look at, what is it? Oh, the
Oh, so
little
there's
itty
some that are
bitty
small
one.
little, like-
Yeah, there's one itty bitty one that I don't.
It wouldn't be worth converting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, it would take, so I don't want to make a statement that says we're gonna have our system converted, because you're almost self-regulating
Yeah.
yourself in allowing,
Well, it's kind of like saying let's underground everything, right?
yeah, you know,
It's
if
like-
it serves the strategic value, absolutely. But again, staff is looking for board feedback on this. It was a substantial change, but, and like I said, we're not abandoning anything, but these projects, I don't anticipate us ever taking on a project as a whole. I mean, maybe some smaller ones,
Right.
but, each of them, if you look at the project that the dock addition was contained in, at the time, it was the highest priority, and there were some other motivations with the trees and, aging infrastructure. But we made it through 2 phases of about 4 and said, wow, our priorities need to change because, we're putting icing on the cake and we need to build a cake somewhere else. So
I guess if I can add a comment, so like well, you got me thinking a bit about that, is that when we had the proposed addition of a annual review of the step down, I kind of wondered about, well, why are we putting an annual or recurring thing in here? But I thought, well, maybe really what that one item should be is initiate an annual review of the step down, so create a process in place that says we're going to do this every year. And maybe part of that is just initiate an annual review of our voltage conversion plan. Right?
Yeah.
And just kind of create a framework that says, hey, if whoever's running and working at this utility, right, is going to every year evaluate our transformers and our voltage conversion plan to find out where we need to convert, where it's useful, where it's not. And that's just something we're going to do as an ongoing basis as part of our infrastructure maintenance.
And that's why I included, that was the intent of trying to include the annual review of the risk matrix was, that's really that review is going to create a higher probability that our projects align with our strategic plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the motivation with including that, because things do change, and if you commit to a project, start to finish, is the last piece of that project really in alignment with it? And that's one of the reasons I wanted to pull those projects out, but again, we're not abandoning them. We can add them, we can keep them in there and do like keep like a reference to it, or we can change the wording from annual review of step down transformer risk matrix to annual review of voltage conversion plan. I like the reference to that risk matrix because that's what ensures that we stay focused on a strategic level. Is making sure, are we maximizing the value of the dollar that we're going to invest in, and without a objective way to measure that, I feel like it's a good step to ensuring that we stay in alignment with the strategic plan. But
and I'll say that, and again, from the governance, maybe I haven't thought everything through yet, but the ends to the means and the means to the ends and all the stuff that we talked about in that. So again, I'm just looking at like these things that you want to remove. To me, I'd rather have it like in a whole separate box and under Project 109, Brian, so what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing from you is there's little tiny pieces in each one of those that are getting done or in the process of getting done, but we're not doing it as a whole.
I think what he's saying is we're not going to tackle Project 109 in its entirety.
Right.
We're going to do elements of it when we can, but there's also elements of it that we're never going to do.
maybe we'll
Right.
let the data dictate that, not an aging plan.
Yeah.
Example, 109 might have 20 sub-things behind it that need to get done under the 109.
Yeah.
And some will and some
But I would also say
Yeah.
they're not small pieces.
Right.
Just this one step to bring the feed over here, we're anticipating about $600,000. So that's why the other thing that we wanted to do starting last year was plan manageable chunks. Make sure that a voltage conversion plan actually converts to an action plan.
Well, didn't this used to be called the 5-year plan, like 3 years ago?
Yeah, we changed that. That was a quick change. We're not getting this done in 5 years. This is 30 years worth of work essentially. Well, Steve mentioned the undergrounding that they did out at Fort Collins. was like a 20, 30-year plan, and they're never done. So, you know, there's going to be phases to each project. And I think one of the learning curves that the utility and staff has come up with is not to just tackle a project
Right.
and say, we're going to go down this project. 'Cause the first one we did was the dock addition, and that was that's still a learning curve. We're still learning from it. But the biggest takeaway was don't commit to a whole. That one piece of a project can change your strategic need. And the work that we've done at dock addition has reduced the load on those step-down transformers to the point where we were able to decouple them. They were parallel together. We were able to decouple them, and we're moving in the right direction to not need to focus as much energy there. And if you look at the impact, that piece of that project, I don't know what project that was actually a part of.
Yeah, I don't know the original project number, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and the project numbers have lost meaning for
Yeah.
staff too, and that's why I look at this list as more the means to accomplish the ends. I think it's important because it all supports strategic goals, but really these are, how are we going to achieve the strategic direction of the board? In my, not to discount any of these, and I'm not trying to discount them by removing them, but I do think from a strategic standpoint, our focus should really be on that risk matrix and letting the risk matrix dictate the priority level. And that's the other thing is I don't know what the priority level of these need to be,
Right.
because, and I think that's,
So,
it's not really a meaningful value to determine that project 109 is a high priority and 110 is
Right.
medium, because the other piece of it is the grid is dynamic. We look at the additional, look at when this plan was developed, there were no cannabis stores, there were no cannabis grow operations, there were, our system at a small scale looked different already, looks different already now, so I think we need to create a system that allows flexibility moving forward. But again, I don't want to discount these projects because, GRP did a great job pulling them together, but they are a very high-level project that is intended to it's either intended to take out debt to do, or it's going to be phased over multiple years to do any of the projects.
it's a great reference, right? I mean, so those projects are all a good reference plan, as we,
Yeah.
before, but I kind of feel like, I don't mind taking the projects out. I kind of like the idea of under that voltage conversion plan, item, just have established, just have a goal of establish an annual review of step-down transformers and an annual review of voltage conversion priorities. Which maybe it's the same tool.
You send it to me in an email? I want to capture that language. Because I think that's exactly, from a staff standpoint and looking at the strategic plan and how we're going to take the strategic plan and put it in action, you just captured exactly what I think needs to happen. And it is bigger than just look at that risk matrix. It's look at that risk matrix in relation to the voltage conversion plan. But I also say that voltage conversion plan loses some meaning year over year as the system changes, which is
Well,
why.
I'm not referring to this Project 10 or whatever
Yeah.
plan. It's just our voltage conversion goals,
Yeah.
right?
I think.
So that's where I think just the establishing that annual review of the step-down transformer risk matrix and the establishing an annual review of the voltage conversion priorities, right?
I guess, just for clarification, are you thinking that are you proposing two separate items? This is really a matter of.
Well, if they kind of feed in, if they're really one and the same, then I would say, just do the annual review of the voltage conversion priorities, which, because that's ultimately what I think as a board, right? We just want to say, well, look, the goal was to be more efficient with how we, move the power around our network, which would require us to do the voltage conversion, and with the goal of being more efficient and saving money and what have you. So I think just having that, creating sort of a nice system or process that we annually will do that evaluation, so that every year you come back and say, hey, for this year, we're going to do these two mini projects. Or this other year, we're going to do this giant project. Or this one year, we're not going to do anything. And it's just, But as long as that is being done every year, that we're looking at our priorities and opportunities, so.
And that's kind of the approach we took this year was to do exactly that. So I think we could actually capture that strategy from a staff perspective, that strategy of an annual review. Because I also think it's important to present, these are significant strategic decisions. I think the board needs to understand why, the why in that piece. Why did we choose to stop this big project and reallocate our resources? That really is at the core of a strategic plan. So, the thought would be review and identify what's appropriate for the next budget year. But we also have, we also need to have a longer outlook as well and be able to, and that's why I like, using the combination of projects and the risk matrix. If this grant, this IIJA money comes out and it only involves a 30% local match, well, now our dollar goes far further. So if we're planning on spending $1 million on capital, now we're at north of $3 million we can do. So we can
That
take,
changes our priority.
yeah, we can take this structure that we've created and say, all right, we now have $3 million. Where can we allocate funds, and how would an allocation of funds change this risk matrix or change our voltage conversion plan? And once, it's really about what funds do you have available, and trying to make sure we align our plans with a realistic financial situation that's going to support those plans. So, but like I said, I'll take board feedback on, I don't want to diminish the value of the projects at all. It's just from a
I like Andrew's idea. I mean,
keep it down at the bottom and say, here's a list of projects.
Charlie, you're talking
well,
about.
I was probably thinking of things that are probably not necessarily more satisfying me personally, meaning like, oh, I love to hear, oh, we worked on this and we worked on that and we worked on this and we worked on that, as compared to, as a board, again, going back to our governance workshop that we had, is basically we should be talking about the ends as compared to, and it's up to you to find the means of how to get to the end. Me, I'm just more of liking to hear, oh, we worked on this, and oh, we worked over on Foreman, and so again, I like Andrew's idea, and it's the same thing. We need to move the meeting along.
One thing I had, Charlie, when you talked about $600,000 for the high voltage on that line coming through there, do you reach out to the city? Because I think in 2027, Jackson Street is going to be completely maybe redone. And maybe they're going to put sidewalks. I'm not sure what that looks like. So when you're putting your power poles down there, are you looking at the long term, what the city's plan is going to be in 4 years, or are they going to come back, hey, you got to move something? I don't know how that works.
One of the items in here is coordinate the, which I can't find
was
right
it?
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ryan handles that, I'll be honest.
does he? Yeah.
He, when he sees a project, he stays very in tune with, with what projects are coming up, where are they going, and that would be something that,
There it is.
we would collaborate with on the city, and we would have conversations with the city, just because it's going to be new lines, it's going to be a significant change that's going to occur in the city right away.
Right,
So
yeah.
the city will be involved, and we'll, short answer is yes, we'll coordinate.
Under the community collaboration box, it's the last row down there.
Yeah, integrate
gotcha,
city,
okay.
and that's kind of a.
I think
That's
the intent when we first put that on there was the notion that, hey, if we have this sort of a longer term plan, between the two, see how we can look 5 or 10 years ahead and say.
Because we got that with our streets, and here's our 5, 6.
Right, because I think at the time I was coming from the council when we had started a roads plan, and so.
Yep.
I
was
just
forgot
kind
it
of
was
say, hey,
there.
if we have these kind of plans, let's kind of periodically compare them and kind of say, hey, if you move this up a year and we move this back a year, they're going to line up and.
Yeah, and it's a, I guess it's a little be honest, it's less of a formal, hey, because
Right.
both plans are dynamic. I
Right, they're
think
pretty
Mike-
fluid, and they're not like
Yes.
just written down as like,
Mhm.
hey, here's a nice register we can compare.
Yeah, so, but I do think there's, that it captures the spirit of collaborating with the city, and
Yeah.
making sure that, and when they tear up Washington, Monroe, and all those, Ryan's, it works both ways. If the city's got a project, we try and get conduits in the ground, try to make it, try to foresee as much as possible any need. And in the other way, if we're planning a project, we want to make sure that if the city can take advantage of it, if the city has projects that would complement it, we do them in due time, but,
Well, you always have that capital money that you got that, we're always still trying to find the funds to get to the end.
yeah.
You know, So,
The only other proposed item to remove is the OMS system, and we talked about this in November. It just, we don't see the value as the value proposition just isn't there for us with a relatively small system that has high reliability marks. Just don't think the return on investment's there at this time. We don't want to abandon the idea, but there is no date, there's no immediate need, so the thought is let's just go ahead and take it off, and if the need arises, then something significant would have to change between where we're at now and a scenario that would really create a value proposition that was attractive to implement an OMS system.
Quick
Yes.
question. So besides going back to this meeting, like on YouTube or whatever, how does all this information, do you have it in a 3-ring bind? So again, I'm thinking of future of a different board, different people coming in, different general man, whatever. How does all this information communicate back to a new board member that?
Well, I sat down with Craig and we looked at it, which would be the hope, but it does sit on our website, and then we don't print it out. We're all electronic, but it is stored in a shared data drive that anybody I think it's in the shared drive.
I think it is too.
Or maybe just be in our
In the
drive. but
data.
It's in a place that is a shared location, and what we do is we also keep history. So we keep a new copy for each year. So a new general manager, a new board member could have access to previous plans, current plans, but they're all electronically saved.
I'm not planning on going anywhere.
I don't say you're trying to get rid of me already.
No, I'm not planning on going anywhere, but as when you have close friends that all of a sudden pass away and this and that, so those questions as you get older, you start to ask those questions a little bit more, I guess.
Well, I hate to hear the reasoning behind why it got brought to the thought process got brought to your attention, but yes, it is readily accessible, and in the general manager succession plan that Steve so graciously left us with, in that is a location for key documents. So you take that general manager succession plan and give it to Craig, or you give it to anybody off the street, and they would know who your key contacts are at different, who our key vendors are, who your contacts are, where, list of important documents, where you can find them on the network, and that guides quite a bit. And included in that's notes on the voltage conversion plan and those things. But yeah, it would be readily accessible to anybody new coming in. So moving to items to be moved to ongoing list. This was kind of, I think, a result of some comments of, we got a lot of ongoing things. They're all good, and I think they exhibit strategic value, and it's a good, I think your comment was, shouldn't we go through the ongoing ones and make sure we're still doing them? Are they still ongoing? But yes, these are all just items that, now, and I forgot, I didn't change the one comprehensive CTs, and I can go through the rationale for why these are ongoing, but ultimately it comes down to this industry is very fluid, and you're never done with some of these things. You know,
So-
you're never done with a comprehensive strategy for CTs. I'd
Yeah.
love to say, we know, we can pull the playbook out, but we were hit with a curveball this year when gas prices went through the roof. It threw everything out.
Mhm.
We're still working on it. We're tackling it from different perspectives. We're looking at staffing. We're looking at long-term personnel needs. Every time Casey runs one unit, it costs $3,000 to fix. He doesn't like me reminding him of that. But and that's not that's really not relevant to this. It's one that you're going to have things to fix, but it highlights that you could operate one time, and it could change your strategy.
Yeah.
One piece, one borescope, and that's how
Right.
a lot of these items are just. They're things that we need to be focusing on, and I like keeping the ongoing list because it's really a tool for staff, but it's also a tool for the board to check against what are the ends and means conversation. These are really means to achieve, but I think that it's important for the board to question: are the ends still? Are the means still meeting the ends? And these ongoing items are really a focus on making sure we're always have those strategic goals and strategic values in mind as we're determining means.
Well, I guess I kind of want to make that suggestion again, is could we convert any of these to objectives where we just establish an ongoing process rather than, because they're in this list, that's nice, but we have other priorities that aren't in this list, like have a clean audit, right? Well, shouldn't this be an ongoing thing that we maintain our books, that we always get a clean audit? But it seems kind of obvious, but it's because we have a process in place that takes care of that now. And so we don't really need to put it here as a ongoing strategy, as that we do good accounting, right?
In general, this document is kind of falls between board and staff responsibility.
Right.
It's that, or no, he didn't share the pyramid. I sat through a different one that was
That's good.
MPPA. I'll share that. We had governance discussion at MPPA
Yeah,
board
and-
meeting. But it's that these are the items that take board direction, or they marry together board direction and the means
Right.
to accomplish it. So I don't know what a professional facilitator would say about this document and
Mhm.
what is the appropriate level of, so it really, I'll lean on, I can speak to the value from a staff perspective. I like seeing these, and there are certain things that are, the audit is kind of the bookend of course, it's a goal to have a clean
Yeah.
audit, but that's a bookend, and there's other bookends that are, it's not clear that that's the direction, and everything else falls in between, so exactly where you draw the line of, we include this or don't include that, I would lean on a professional facilitator to
Yep.
help guide this document itself, because I don't know what, I can see Steve, the facilitator, saying, these are all means. I see strategic value in the board having a knowledge of means, where if you look at like a clean audit, again, I don't know, there's.
Well, I guess, for my thought is that the ongoing part, I kind of see as, I guess I see this list as, here's things we want to do to adapt ourselves to meet our strategy, right? These are changes we want to make, such as we want to do a voltage conversion, right? We want to make this change, kind of thing. And where things are, it's like, this is how we want to kind of do business on a daily basis. I don't see the need to kind of keep those there. But if we don't currently do that, then that's where I think then we would put things here as, hey, we want to change our behavior so that we are doing an annual transformer risk matrix, right? And if we weren't getting clean audits, we would put a thing here that says establish a process that we get clean audits, right? Once we start doing that, then that's just how we do business, and that's something we're going to keep doing.
I think we could, I see that, I think we could take the ongoing items and make a separate list. And because I see value in the list itself, but
Mhm.
maybe not in this context. If it's more value for just staff to make sure we're staying focused on some of these strategic values, then maybe it's a tool that we use internally. I would look for board direction on how to modify this, because it is a gray area in the strategic plan, to be quite honest.
And, yeah, maybe it's one of those things where we need to have a list of like goals and opportunities, right? So that some of these things are things we're going to do by a certain time frame, and some of these are things to keep in the back of our mind as we're gonna try to find out ways to make this happen, but there's no set time frame. Like some of those, like the, what was that one, exploring ideas to, the data systems, right?
Explore economies of scale, or?
No, actually, it was a leveraging data systems, right, to make proactive decisions. I mean, really, that's an opportunity thing, right? We're looking for ways that we have this AMI data. How can we take advantage of it? That's not really something you make like, where does that end, right? But that's one of those things where it's like, find those opportunities, and maybe if we find some, you can take that off the list or something, but yeah, that's where I think, like you said, the facilitators is gonna help, I think, at least help us kind of guide what we want to put on those lists so that we're not going too far in the weeds. Because there are times I felt like in the past that this does go a little bit into the weeds, but I don't know, I think this framework is like, 10 some years old or more, so.
Yeah,
this plan, so it may be obsolete anyway. Not the plan, but the framework.
Yeah, and that's where like I said, I don't want to, I think we start getting into structural changes at that point, and not necessarily the nuts and bolts of this document. It's how do we want to structure the document, and my personal opinion, and it's really just to share my personal opinion, not really a direction, but would be to let's really, if we're going to bring a facilitator in to do a review, then let's tackle all structural issues at that time. Because I also don't want to make a change and a facilitator come in and say, that was great. I think the facilitator is going to, agree with you that, yeah, these are things that are, some of them are in the weeds, some of them aren't. There's going to be varying levels of need for the board to be involved in some of these, but others, they may say, no, that is absolutely, I don't know where they would land. So, and to some of it is how does this, one of the big takeaways I took from the governance training is the board, there is no one size fits all, obviously. It's the board should determine the appropriate level for this board, outside of, obviously within certain parameters. So I guess for that.
So I don't think I need to change the whole ongoing thing, right? Because, like I said, if we're going to do a review of this plan structure, I think that can wait till then. But.
Yeah, and I can move, if you want, I can move these to the ongoing page just for organizational sake. They all stay there, but it's really just an organizational thing for consistency. And then as far as the other updates, most of these are just timeline updates. Projects are taking longer. They're bigger than we thought. But there are projects, and some of them are just getting rid of fiscal year 2021 projects, which ended last June. So, there are projects that we thought we'd finish last year that we're going to finish this year. They're very minor changes. The one I will point out is explore economies of scale between Lowell Light and Power and the water department. Mike and I spoke about this, and we both see value. I think he has some hurdles from a workforce standpoint to to really realize the benefits of that. I think some of his thoughts were that there'd be a pretty significant labor savings, and I don't want to speak for his plans or anything, but I guess I'll just say that from a conversation we had, we both agreed that it would probably be best to put this on hold at this point, and the circumstances would have to change to do that.
Yeah. And, things could change. We could get some grant dollars that affect this, and that would flip the priority on this in a minute, so, because the money's there to do it, so.
And then the only other real change is the West Michigan Safety Roundtable's on hold. We are looking, between COVID and, our safety program in general, we're just kind of looking at, we've got some pending retirements in the next few years that could impact this. And, it really relies heavily on others wanting to participate in this. We all still see value and want to keep it there, but at this time, it's something that we need to put on hold. Other than that, I did highlight some items that have been completed.
So is the line check not a completed one yet?
We don't have the money in hand.
Okay, so that.
I
Just wanna make sure.
understand that at our next city council meeting, they will be bringing a proposal to us
Yes.
to do it. I'm disappointed that it's taken as long as it has, considering I think there were other people that had put in their offers that maybe done a little sooner than what we decided. But we'll get to an end.
And it's funny because you bring that one up. That is the exact item that I was thinking of when I said that, there's that one in the substation project where I thought, man, I don't want to get presumptuous and say it's been completed, because
No, that's.
I'm the eternal pessimist sometimes, and Julie, I'm the eternal pessimist. I want it to be done before I tell the board it's done. And timing just, I think
I'm fine with that.
in 2 weeks, we could change a lot of the dates.
Yeah.
I think we could almost change the date of the substation project right now. I don't know if Casey would quite agree, but I think it's pretty well done. There may be some,
Documentation.
some documents,
Yeah.
not quite, but it's functioning.
Yes.
In all intents and purposes, it's functioning, so.
I agree with your rationale with that.
I don't count anything until it's in my hand.
Especially something.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big dot on the I kind of thing for dotting your I's and crossing your
Yes.
T's.
And then I included some additional data. I won't go into it. It's just some of our additional rationale and some of the bigger changes. But with that, I've kind of summed up kind of the changes. I'll hand it back over to you, Perry.
So are there any, after our conversation, are there anything that you want to tweak or change to this?
Well,
So my question, do you want approval tonight, or are there some changes or tweaks that you want to do to it and bring it back to our March meeting for a full, we have 2 board members that aren't here, and approve it at that meeting, or what would you like? And I'm probably not gonna, my inclination is I probably won't be here in March, I'll probably be out in Colorado.
that's a good one, too. I feel better, it's a dot in the i's, crossing the t's. I'd feel better if everything, there are some minor tweaks. I'd rather present a final product and have you all decide on the final product. That way, if I don't capture the spirit of anything, I'd hate to.
I'm good with that. So our plan would be for you to tweak anything that, comments and things that we gave, and then come back to the board for approval on the strategic plan in our March meeting.
Which will be a very short meeting. The Perry's not going to be here.
That's right.
Yeah, but you're taking over.
We'll set some goals, all right, we'll do that. You ready to move on? Mike?
Yep.
All right.
So, future board meeting dates. So, it was, Charlie's bringing this to us, or, several reasons. Daniel's business dictates that, Wednesday through Saturday is really getting difficult for him. I know that, with Jim, retiring and, to continue to be on this, that it would be difficult for him to be on Thursdays. Charlie is presenting a proposal, and we've had, at our governance, we just casually talked about it, and everybody seemed to be on board with it. Had not heard from Andrew, but, so we're looking at changing it to the Tuesday after the second Monday.
You nailed it.
And with that, the only other question I would have for the rest of the board, is 6 o'clock working for you, or would it be better if it was 6:15? That gives, I know like Tina's coming from Grand Rapids, sometimes there's the traffic issues and everything, and I don't want to stretch it out, till 7 or anything, because again, we do have long meetings, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but again, also as compared to the council, we only have 2 meetings we only have 1 meeting where we have a lot of business to try to accomplish, and so.
Well, I would have a request, are we going, we're not gonna vote on this change tonight, are we?
Yes,
Okay. If we could start it in April, that would be great, because I go out of town on the 15th, and with you going out of town, we might have an issue with quorum.
So,
and we can change, and we can,
So
I mean,
if we could do
cancel and we can change the date or whatever. My plans are I'll be working out in Colorado.
so so if I can speak on March specifically, that's one that really does have an impact on staff.
Okay.
And I would like to, I make the request to allow staff, how we do it, I don't necessarily want to propose, I guess, if it doesn't work for everybody, but staff could really benefit from some additional time to prepare the budget. That is that draft budget is that's where we do a lot of the legwork.
We have to approve that in March to send it to the draft,
Yeah.
to the city council.
And that is a heavy lift, and that one to get out in
4 days.
less than 4 days, because you guys have to close the books,
Right.
which takes a couple days. We ultimately have like a day to
Well,
produce.
and we have vacation in there.
Yeah, and there's vacation, so if we could push that one out
We
to,
have to do that week of the 14th.
Yeah,
It's
we
not the
could-
15th.
yeah, if we
Yeah.
could get to the week of the 14th,
Mhm.
that would be,
Would be
it would really enable staff to put the necessary time into developing the budget.
Right.
And like I said, that's a very heavy lift, and it also falls on the heels of me going to DC for the legislative rally, and we have some vacation time that is in there as well, so Megan and I work very closely on the budget, in addition to Julie, Casey and Ryan, and there won't be a day that week that Megan and I can both be in the office the same day, so.
And it can't, that's why we went to I'm just gonna say, that's why, we were a 3-member board for forever, and quite a few years ago, we went to a 5-member board, and that's one of the reasons, because we're yes, we get a very, very small stipend for being a board member, but we all have other things in our lives, jobs and different things that we need to take care of. So, yes, I'm planning on bringing it to a vote tonight to change it. And it's also, not only that, it's going to, like Charlie started to say, it's going to allow our staff a much less stressful time of getting the board packets and everything put together and with all the necessary information.
Just be a consistent month over month. There's months that Julie and Megan, and again, as we talked in Governor String, it's not necessarily producing the packet itself, it's everything that has to be done regardless of the packet, but you get the process of closing the month out, I won't speak to in detail, because I could not speak to it in detail, but I know it is a struggle for staff to get everything done in 2 or 3 days sometimes. So from a staff standpoint, it would be very helpful in creating a consistent workload. It makes planning easier, and really would be a major benefit, specifically in months like the budget months, so March and May.
So what I'm hearing is you're gone, so the other 3 board members have to be here that March 15th to get this.
Yes,
I know I will be in Myrtle Beach golfing.
I know, you told me that one. It'd be a real, you're right, Andrew, it may be a real short
You know,
meeting.
and again.
I will have somebody's gonna sit in for me that
Are
day.
you?
Yeah, yeah.
Which it's not gonna, obviously it's not gonna happen, but if the state government would,
Oh, allow remote attendance.
I got
Yes.
I got an update on that, please don't hold your breath.
Yep.
That's the next summit real quick.
get their heads out of their, whatever.
That doesn't mean that you can't call in, you just can't vote.
I just can't vote,
That's
right.
correct.
And I don't.
But I don't count as a quorum
That's
because I can't
correct,
vote.
I understand that, yeah.
And I'm not
That's
sure
the
you're,
issue.
I'm not sure you can, I would have to look at, see if.
Can't
we-
deliver, right,
No,
currently you
no.
can't
I don't
deliberate.
think-
Leah couldn't
Deli-
say a word either,
Yeah,
she could listen in. but
You
she
can
couldn't
listen,
say
but I
anything.
don't think you can even comment,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Just
Anyway.
have to mute them.
So, I mean, if you want the security of having a quorum for the next meeting, I mean, even if you, for this one, do it even just Monday the 14th, I mean, or not. I mean,
But then-
that's okay. That's okay if you
But
don't.
then that becomes a conflict with the city council and everything. That's why
Oh.
we're talking about Tuesday. So again,
Well, that-
No, we do the 7th
We
and the
did plan it to be on
21st.
off weeks.
okay,
Yeah, we would do the 7th and the 21st of March.
okay.
That was one of the strategies of saying, we've got to, after the second Monday and not the second Tuesday of the month. You know, making sure
Yeah.
that, or, you know, something like that.
Mhm.
But it's trying to keep on a different week, but that's still board discussion.
So the Tuesdays are fine with me, and I think 6 o'clock time works well. I wouldn't want to go later than that.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm-
I wouldn't
I'm
mind meeting
good.
at 5, but I know that that's not going to work for some folks, so.
So, and again, I know that you mentioned, because I'm gonna be out working on my daughter's house for like probably a 3-week project, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna be here, be around most of March.
So if he called it, he'd be snoring anyway.
Rocky Mountain.
So anyway, and for me, I'm just saying personally, I mean, I much rather keep it consistently, even though that it's the first month, you know, that day. I'd rather keep it consistent in saying that it's the Tuesday after the second Monday.
Yeah.
But that's, and you know, my preference is to have, I don't like making motions as the chair board, I wanna,
Yep.
so,
So I guess I'll motion that we move our meeting dates to 6 PM on the Tuesday after the second Monday of
Support.
every month.
it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, this may be a quick one. So the next item is, it's kind of, I put 2 action items, but we can address them both at the same time, basically, because the reasoning behind them is the same. So as we've talked about, the PA 342 sunsetted for municipalities at the end of 2021. And we had some references to the rate itself in, or to that legislation in our rates, and this is just a really an administrative change to update our rate tariffs to remove those references. I did expound upon the smart energy program that we've discussed a little bit more. And then just as a little foresight, foreshadowing, when we do a cost of service study with UFS this year, we're going to take a close look at the renewable energy charge in whether or not that's still needed in its current form, or should we adjust the structure of that. And I would anticipate a change in structure to that, but ultimately this just changes some language in the rates, but does not have any impact on customer bills. It just is an elimination of that law that no longer applies to us.
So, as I was kind of going back and forth between the documents, the only changes are to the description, right?
That's it. It's
So
just
it's not, no changes to the rates, it's just.
It is just a
The paragraph after the applicability is the only thing that changes for
Yep.
both, right?
That is it.
Okay.
So no customer impact. It's really just an administrative change. Talked with. It's not 100% necessary. It's just not accurate, and I
Right.
feel like we should be more accurate and remove that reference. And who knows, there may be a new reference in the future that influences some of these policies if the legislature so chooses.
Okay,
Yeah, for these kind of things, it'd be kind of helpful to see the was-is or whatever you help track changes or.
Yeah, I started to do that and it screwed everything up, so I thought I'd try and do both, but it.
Yeah, or you just delete the whole paragraph, replace it with one underneath.
That's-
Otherwise, when you try to reword it, I know what you mean, it looks all goofy and you can't read it, but
Yeah,
you just do the whole paragraph at a time at least.
I could probably, I could have done that.
Yeah, or just highlight this is what changed, because I was,
Oh, I should, yes.
because yesterday when I was going through this, I was kind of flipping back and forth to the 2 pages trying to say, okay, did he change anything in this paragraph or did any of these numbers change? And
I appreciate that feedback, because
Okay.
you're 100%, hindsight's always 20/20,
Yep.
especially your hindsight for me. So, no, I think you're absolutely right. I could have presented that in a much more easy to digest method for the board, so.
Nope.
okay, I would entertain a motion to make the change, update the policy 4.2, or
And
4-2.
We're doing both together or one
I-
separate?
One memo, I think we should do two separate, I think we should have it's two separate policies, so I think we should have two separate action items.
Okay,
Yeah, several goals.
so I'll move to approve the amended policy 4.2.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And then I'll move to approve the amended policy 4.4.
And I'll support it.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We already did item E, so we'll move on to informational items.
All right, so we'll start with performance data, and I'll highlight, we'll skim over a lot of this very briefly. We're 7 months into the year now, so we're seeing lots of trends. And again, the one to focus from, especially from a board standpoint, is that total electric sales year over year. We continue to exceed last year consistently month after month, which is what we would expect. We're currently about $240,000 ahead of last year, which is on pace to continue to meet our projected increases budget year over budget year. With that said, I will move on and won't touch on the cost per kilowatt hour, but I will stop at the aging analysis. This was based on feedback from you last month, Andrew, and I think it really highlights, it definitely changes the way that this data is presented. And from one of the takeaways from the governance training that we're going to be working on is how to incorporate more graphs, how to boil down some of the raw data into easily digestible. I think performance data, that first, there's some continued opportunities. We don't need to talk about it here, and I can touch base. If you have individual ideas on how to present the information in a graphically in a more succinct and digestible manner for you, please reach out to me. Let's sit down, let's get out some paper. I don't think it's a board table exercise, but I do think I want board feedback, because it's definitely, the packet is for you, it's for the public, it's for your governance education. So the more we can present in a digestible manner, the better it is. With that, the delinquent balances, this is a little bit of a new graph, and we want to grow this to, the previous graph had 3 years, and we want to continue to grow this, but what we want to propose to look at from a delinquent balance is the highest likelihood that the delinquent balances result in bad debt that ultimately has to be written off. That's the focus and the intention of tracking, especially from a governance standpoint, board level, is keeping you all in tune with what's the probability of seeing XYZ for bad debt in the future. So the numbers that we've highlighted are the balance of inactive accounts. That's really your highest threat to write off, because those are no longer customers and those are outstanding bills. We only write off inactive customers. But also, kind of as a lead up to that, we think the delinquent balances, so that the customers that get to disconnect service orders, so the customers that get all the way to the point where they've gotten the tag, so they get tagged as being eligible for disconnect. The next day, anybody that's still on that list, it produces a service order, a disconnect service order. That's the next kind of most likely source of potential bad debt. So we wanted to try and get rid of some of the information that was that graph got very, I don't say, it got very busy. That's right. It was a very busy graph, and I think Andrew, you had mentioned, well, you proposed what we should look at, and to me, these are the items that really lead to a potential bad debt, and that's ultimately what the board is tracking and seeing. So that's a new graph, and we'll welcome.
So you're saying that the addition of if you add the blue and red, that's the potential write-off. That's the sort of the cap of write-off, that we're still working to get some of that down.
Yeah, and you can see that the inactive balances change month to month. That difference from December from January may be the efforts to collect one debt. I doubt it. That one's almost $1,000. It's probably a reflection of the cumulative effort of the staff.
Yeah, because that's residential, right, that green?
Those are our residential customers.
They have $1,000 residential, that's pretty high.
Yeah, that's total number. So one of the idea.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Yeah, the idea behind including that is as the residential customer count grows, you anticipate your bad debt to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of in reference to if bad debt is trending down and customer counts are trending up, that's ideal. If they're both trending together, that may or may not be bad.
It's just if they're parallel.
Yeah. We're
just keeping pace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was something I had Steve had a few years ago, was that green line.
Yeah, and I think it's great, and it's a meaningful line, because your bad debt should be viewed in the lens of, in reference to something, in reference to customer, in reference to revenue, in reference to, what's it proportional to? As a standalone number, $1,000 may be a horrible bad debt, may be a great bad debt. $100,000 may be a great bad debt for one utility. For us, it'd be horrible. So I did want to just pause a little bit on that item. With that, we'll roll on to the outage report. I do not have the level of details that Ryan has, but I'll highlight that we hit 5 nines again this last month, and for me, that's the ultimate goal. It's a very, very lofty goal, but with the ASAI, the availability index, serving 99.999% of our load is outstanding. But you can see there was one outage, lasted for 33 minutes and impacted 11 customers. That was it. So I don't have the details on that one outage.
Yep. Any idea what that mechanical or just?
I don't. I could follow up, but I was counting on Ryan to present this, and he came down with the crud. And I didn't want to pester him over one outage today. He said the description was, I feel like it got ran over and then backed up and ran over again. So.
I still like the half an hour outage. It's
fantastic.
I know that's
fantastic. I love it.
It's amazing. It can be.
Except for those 11 customers.
Even then, you have
Save
to
my lifetime.
by that by the time you start thinking about what do I do with power, it comes back on.
By the time you get bored, it's back on. That's the goal.
Summertime, it's like, what do I pack in the freezer, make sure nobody opens the freezer so it doesn't spoils, you know?
For half an hour, what do you?
Wintertime, you set it outside, you know?
Yeah. No investor would have that record.
We'll move on to the income statement. This is the area that we've talked about some. I see a lot of opportunity to present graphs here and boil down very high level, because ultimately, when you get down to the individual GL account numbers, there's so many moving parts, it loses value to a board. It really, individual GLs get down to the weeds. So we're gonna pursue some opportunities to graphically show, especially this first page, and really, highlight operating revenues, operating expenses, operating income, non-operating revenue, and net income. Those are some big, high-level pictures. But I will touch briefly on the income statement. Finally, we're seeing some, all the power costs, and I've said, month after month, we're going to get some alignment. We're going to come together. And I don't want to say I was losing sleep because I have faith in the process. And it's a process. It's not arbitrary. It's a repeatable, calculable process. So I was confident in it. But we started to see some pretty significant alignment this month. We are still seeing purchase power expenses elevated. Campbell and Bell River both ran over budget this year. I don't have the numbers directly in front of me as far as the impact, but we'll also see some relief for the remainder of the year because our debt on, as Perry, you mentioned, the debt on Campbell 3 was paid off. I don't know if it's officially paid off, because I don't know if MPPA, I don't know if MPPA's made their payment, but from our billing standpoint, we are officially debt-free on Campbell, which is awesome. Very, very good. So everything else is, all the expenses are coming in under budget, which is great, and I would anticipate those numbers finishing less under budget than they are. Some of them are big chunk projects. But all in all, seeing less than 1% off on revenues, less than 0.5% off on total operating expenses. The savings that we've been able to realize in other areas has really offset the overages in purchase power. But ultimately, you boil down to operating income. We're still 4% behind budget, but that number has gotten much more in line with what we anticipate. And I continue to anticipate a movement in that direction. But ultimately, you get down to the bottom line, and net income is now within 0.5% of budget. And I've got to commend Megan for all the work that she puts into preparing the very detailed budgets and month-to-month budgets. So she's spot on and doing an awesome job. But any questions on the income statement? All right, capital projects are more of the same. I won't really touch on them. I'll touch a little bit in my manager's report, but we've had unless anybody has any specific questions about capital projects, we'll move on to board training session.
That's me.
All right, not hearing any, I will give it the quick introduction. Everybody knows Julie. She's going to talk to you about the new customer portal. No, we've got a board training session to review this.
Thanks, guys. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks you guys for coming.
Yes, thank you for coming.
So yeah,
Well, I'm looking at the memorandum, and it says, during the March board meeting, Julie will conduct a board training session to provide an update overview of the new customer portal.
Yours says March? Mine does not. Whatever packet I grabbed says February.
Yeah, this says March.
I have no clue where that came from.
Dated February 4th.
No,
Dated
sorry.
February 4th.
You're out of here, Julie. We'll see you next
Hey,
month.
good thing
Sorry.
you don't have to train Perry next month.
remember when the close contact happened and I was gonna do you remember that?
I wonder,
You
yeah.
were originally said maybe we'll have to move to March if my close contact changed.
Yeah, things were up in the air.
Okay. All right, I'm just,
They went.
I thought it said new cut, but then it
Number
says.
4 from Shirley West, from.
Yeah. hey,
So I
My
was-
name's on it, I screwed it up.
I was perhaps gonna do it in March, but I'm doing it today. Sorry, sorry to disappoint you. So I'm just gonna talk about the customer portal. We made this little slide, actually not we, Lisa made it, and we had a discussion of what we wanted to show you, but this is our website. When you go to lowlightandpower.org, there's a little, we call this a button, that blue little thing that says click to access. And you just go to our website and you just click on there. A little circle with the arrow comes up, and then it brings you right into this page where you can sign in or you can register. So if you were a customer and you wanted to register to be included in everything that our portal offers, you would click that register here, under right next to new user, register here. And then you'd go into this page, and then you'd fill in all this information, your username, you'd create all this, your password, and then your account number. The one thing that we are having a few customers unsure what to do for the account number, you only have to enter your base number. So if your account number, like the example shows, is 1234-001, you'd only would need to enter the 12345, okay? And then that ends up creating you an account. Once you are in your account, this is just a page that kind of shows different things that you can look at, right? All the stuff on the left. You can view your bill. You can look at paperless. You can make a payment. You can sign up for auto pay. All those different choices are something that you can do on this page. Also, if you have multiple accounts, like that's shown here, if someone has more than one account, like let's say you have a house and then you also have a barn, okay? But you have 2 accounts. You can see all of them here at one time, and it would show, your different accounts, your service address, and then it shows how much you owe. So on the left there is all the different tabs. You can click on any of these and go into all of them. But when we're trying to do a screenshot for this PowerPoint presentation, you can't see them all. So we made another list of all of the items you can do, right? You can view your current bill. You can sign up for paperless. You can sign up for pay by text. You can go to communication and request email sent to the customer service email. You can add an account, or you can change your password. You can do multiple different things on those choices, right? So then once you get into your account and you want to view the current bill, here you can see just the same stuff that's on your actual bill. You can see your service time frame, December 26th through January 25th. You can see your current charges. You can see that you've made a payment. You can see your usage towards the bottom. So you can make a payment there, or you can view your bill. And when you click on the PDF, view the bill, it looks just like the bill you get in the mail.
That
Okay.
usage is kilowatts, or what is that? So if I was a
Yeah.
homeowner, what would I know what the 760 is?
Yeah, your usage, your kilowatt per hour,
Okay.
kWh. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was just gonna
Same
ask
thing
if
that's
we
shown
could
on your bill.
What's that?
Could we just add like kilowatts?
Yeah, I'm just
Add
saying.
the units at the end of the, could they display that?
I can ask.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what,
It's the
I
same
know
thing
what
that
it
if you
means, but
clicked
does
on the
anybody
bill,
else?
you would see.
Oh, you would see it, okay.
Yeah, this
Oh,
is
so it
just,
shows that if
this
you
is
do
just
the
like a
PDF?
summary, but then if you click on it, you can actually see your
Oh,
original
okay.
bill. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just like
Don't
a
create any more.
preview, I
Yeah,
guess.
so if it's in the
maybe.
PDF, that's fine.
Yeah.
It is on the PDF,
Okay.
yeah.
And we're somewhat beholden to what options we'll give,
Yep.
Right,
so.
Yeah.
But you can always present a good idea. Good idea is a good idea. It might take them 3 years to incorporate it, but a good idea is a good idea.
Good point. So if you do click right there, it says make a payment, you go to this screen, and if you do just have one account, which this example does, you can just click that little check mark right there, and you would just pay the selected account. Once you go on to the next page, it, you know, do you want to pay today, or you could schedule it out for, let's say you want to pay Friday, because you get paid on Friday, okay, so you could do that. But most people, I think the default is pay today, and most people just pay today. And then there is all these choices for them to pick. You can pay by credit card with your Visa, MasterCard, Discovery. You can pay Google Pay. You can do e-check, which is coming out of your bank account. We're taking it from your bank account. You can pay with PayPal, and also we can pay with Venmo. Okay, and this is a choice if you chose to pick pay by text. Okay, this is an example of someone's actual text. Charlie's. He got this on his phone. You know, first, before you get here, you'd have to sign up for pay by text. You'd have to have your account information, like either your checking account or your credit card information set up. Now, we have tested it where someone called and wanted it. There's a field where we can enter someone's phone number. It texts them. It then sends them in there to enter it all. So you can kind of do it the backwards way, but ultimately you need to have your information in there. And then next month it'll just text you, do you want to pay this? Click OK, like Charlie did, and then right away his payment is just processed. He doesn't have to go in, log in or anything. All he has to do is reply OK, and his payment gets paid that day.
Okay.
It's a very neat service if you ask
So
Charlie.
you're not waiting for any paper check, this is automatically paid when this hits, okay?
And it hits your account within like 20 minutes.
20 minutes, okay.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I've been the guinea pig and have tried to, my goal was to use every different payment method. I've done, you'll pay through the emails, pay through, I might be ringing the parade.
That's okay, no,
But
you're-
yeah, this pay by text was, I don't know, the payment options were very attractive to us, and things, presenting new opportunities in new ways for our customers to engage with us, instead of us telling them how they need to engage with us. This approach is more of a, how do you want to engage with us? And here's a suite of options. But
Yeah,
I mean,
everyone likes to pay different,
Yeah,
and there
yeah.
is lots of choices, and so, yeah, I think the pay by text, I
So-
think the more we talk about it, the more customers know about it. So it's obviously, you know, part of our moving forward.
Do we have a list of all the options people can pay? Or I guess there's all the menu options or something, but it occurred to me it might be handy to list, here's the ways you can pay and here's how long each of these methods takes, you know, on average, or roughly.
I don't know if you could have that on the portal when you go to pay. We couldn't copy that page because it gave too much information, okay? But the final page, when you do select, you can, there's all those choices there for you to pay. So once you get into that far in, you can pick whichever one you want.
Okay, well, just when you mentioned that it would post in 20 minutes,
Yep.
it's like, well, maybe we could just have a list of like, here's the 5 different ways or 8 different ways you can pay. This one's gonna take you 3 to 7 days, and this one, you know, depending on your bank, whatever.
Oh no, all of the choices all hit 20 minutes.
All of them?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
through the portal.
Through our portal,
A lot
all
of
of
them
them.
are probably less than 20 minutes, aren't they?
Well, we
Or-
say 20 because you never know.
Well, yeah, we say 20, yeah. Which, and I don't,
Okay, never
in
mind that.
comparison to the old one, the old portal, any payment that was made through the portal,
The next day.
it was, we got a report when we came in the next day, and it was applied, one of the major things was gaining
Real
close to real-time,
Mhm.
account reflection of payments.
Right. Yep. Mhm.
Cool, okay, then never mind. that.
Yeah, anything on the portal, all processes that quick. Now, if you paid a different way, like similar to the way Susan pays, that's different. But everything through the portal is all the same.
Okay, cool.
So this is just a graph of everyone that has registered for the portal. Obviously, December 8th is when we kind of started it, but didn't tell that many people. And then we had a letter that went out that said it was going to start the next week. And so you can just see it, how it gradually has increased. These are just people that have registered. Like they went onto the website, clicked on that first button on the website, and actually went in and created an account. Because you don't have to create an account to pay. You can just be like a guest person and just make a payment, like a one-time payment, okay? So then the next graph is about paperless. So these are people that have went on, they've elected to be paperless. Their bill will not print. They'll get an email saying their bill is generated, and they can click to go and view it, but they will not receive a paper copy in the mail any longer. They can obviously go back and change their mind, but these are the people that have selected as of yesterday.
And if you do the paperless and you have a saved payment method, in the email, and I should have shared that, I didn't think about it. In the email that sends, it says pay bill, one click pay bill or whatever it says, and it's not quite one click, but it's very few. I did it, you click it, it takes you to a page, you authorize the transaction and hit submit. So it's about 3 clicks, but the ease of payment and the options in payment methods is pretty awesome. And then the paperless is great for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then the third thing is the auto pay, right? This is where someone, is in their account. They can make their one-time payment, but then they can sign up for auto pay. And what that means is auto pay will come out always on the 18th. So you can sign up, and auto pay, is directly withdrawn from your account, credit card or bank account, on the 18th. And we had a few people, we called them EFT or ACH draft, and so that's where the 189 started, and then we've grown since then. So this is, like we were talking earlier, this is, there won't be any checks coming in, there won't be any posting of manually customer service rep entering the payment. These are all entered directly. And then here's some challenges we did face. Obviously, there's always a challenge. We were unaware that if you had your email address anywhere in Daffron or this new e-business, emails were sent to everyone. So customers did get an email. They weren't sure why they got an email because we'd never emailed them before. So we, fielded those calls, explained to them. There is an option in there if you don't want to receive any emails, we can just click that. We don't have to get rid of your email address, but we are just not going to send you anything. So we have selected that for several people. The call-in number, the IVR number, a lot of people, even though we write it on the bill and we explained in the letter, we, sent lots of, through the letter, and then we also updated through Facebook and tried to indicate to everyone that the number did change. A lot of people had it programmed into their phone and didn't read what we presented to them, and so they just kept calling the old number. Similar to the bank situation we were talking about earlier, just didn't realize that the number had changed and didn't know how to pay. We just had a lot of people calling in, I'm trying to pay, your system's broke, and so no, we explained, we sent you a letter, the number changed, here's the new number. So they would just call the new number. And then similar to how the discussion went earlier, some banks were using that old IVR and their payments didn't go as planned. Other things that have happened is when there's a customer or there is similar to what we were talking about earlier, where another person, like a bank, is calling in and making a payment, they're entering their customer's account number incorrectly. So the account number that they're entering might be missing a 0, and so they're applying their payment to someone else's account. So we're, make sure you enter your account number. It should come up there with your name and make sure that's the amount you want to pay. Many customers have had some struggles with it, but we've worked through each one case by case. And once they provide the right information to us that proves that they did make this payment, we have transferred to the correct account. Future items that we plan to market, we're hoping to give some giveaway contest type of things for customers, incentivize them to go paperless, to go auto pay. We're working on all of those types of things. We're gonna present some of them at the expo, have people sign up for scheduled times. They'd either come into the office, we'd have an iPad there, help them through it, or we would talk on the phone with them and walk them through it. We think there's a lot of people that want to sign up, they just don't know how, or they're confused, or they don't know how to do this next step. So we really want to have situations where we can help them on a schedule that works for them, not when we want them to sign up. So we're going to be talking about all of those giveaways and different contests that we're going to do for customers through like bill stuffers at the expo. We'll do a press release talking about them so more people can be aware. We try to do a lot of stuff on Facebook, but not a lot of people look at our Facebook page. So I think that's it for me. Any questions?
Can I have my name on my account and my wife have her name on the account too, so that we both can check it or make payments, or is it one household, one account, one name?
So it's one login.
Yeah.
So you would have to know the login.
I would
for-
have to know her login and her password. I couldn't create my own because I never remember her stuff.
So you can't have two people associated with the same account.
Right, you'd have to have one login. So if you
Two
named
logins.
it, you know, your last name, it's not necessarily hers.
Mm-hmm.
It's the household account, and you all could log in with that account login.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'll just say, I'm excited, and I'm excited for what I sat through a meeting,
This week. Yep.
this way, I don't know. what
Tuesday.
week it is. Yeah, Tuesday. Life's been disrupted, COVID,
Yes.
it's fun, across the board. But I sat in on just a brainstorming session on Tuesday with the staff, and we've got a great team. Julie and her staff have really come together as a team, and we were actually talking about it before the board meeting, is highlighting the skill set that comes out of that group and the collaborative nature, and truly the sum of the parts is greater than the individual components with the team. They work great together. Julie does a great job directing them, but she's even been able to rely on others to take bigger roles, and allowed some, there's some flexibility in creativity in this, and they've got a lot of great ideas. And I will also share that with the incentives, one of the things we did was when Consumers was handing out their match on Lowell bucks, we might have bought a little bit, and gonna incentivize with some Lowell bucks, so I kind of got a kick out of that. Consumers gonna help us incentivize some paperless and auto pay.
So I can't pay my light bill with Lowbucks?
You can
No.
not pay with Lowell bucks,
But you can use Lowbucks multiple locations within the city.
But we did take,
Yeah.
when we started talking about how to incentivize, it was important to even be strategic down to what we give out. What are we going to use this to incentivize? And we all thought that Lowell bucks really are in alignment with a lot of our strategic values. So I thought it was a great idea.
It's what we're going to start with. It's not like that's the only thing we're going to
Yeah,
do.
there's
Many other ideas, options, but that's what we're going to start with right now. Hopefully we can get some people to sign up for auto pay, to sign up for paperless, and they'll be in the drawing. Each time we have a drawing, it's not like it's just those people that signed up, that month. It'd be everyone from the beginning all the way through, when we decide to start it. And then each time it'll, hopefully the group keeps getting bigger and bigger, and we'll be drawing for those incentives to get people to sign up. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for listening, and encourage you to get on there. And I also want to thank Lisa for creating this and doing a great job of putting all this together for us to present this here. I'm all set.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Glad we didn't have to wait till March.
Managers
I
report.
know. Aren't you glad we didn't wait till March? All right, manager, I'll make
I wouldn't have been here.
this. I was gonna say, yeah, look at all you missed. I'll hit just briefly on the manager's report. Casey and I did participate in a Campbell 3 project, project committee meeting. I was hoping for a little more, hoping for a more substantive update, but there isn't one at this time. It's just, MPPA was kind of keeping us apprised of where we are in the process with the IRP and PSC case. We would anticipate hearing some preliminary decisions in the next couple months. So over the next 3 to 6 months, no longer, hopefully much shorter than 6 months, we start getting a little clarity on what the MPSC is going to authorize consumers to do with that. We did have a good board meeting this week. I'd say there was no action items at the MPPA board meeting, but we did conveniently enough start a governance focus at the MPPA level, and as I see good information, which if I can get a hold of the slide deck that Dave used during his presentation, I will share that with the board just as information crosses from one board to the next. MMEA, we met today. We'll share with the board that we had a very lengthy couple of discussions. Want to update the board on. We've been made aware, and I won't go into too many details, that there is a law firm in Michigan that is pursuing some Freedom of Information Act requests, and they are targeting some municipalities. They've done this in the past. Be happy to share any more detailed information. I don't know, quite frankly, I don't know what is public knowledge at this point, but I think Mike shared it with council a little bit on Monday that there's a law firm that is creating some noise, and it surrounds, well, we learned some ulterior motives potentially today, so I won't necessarily expound upon what we think they're pursuing, but there could be, if you hear me talk of a future FOIA request, I'll share more information. But it is definitely just a little foreshadowing. We're hoping that you can do everything right and still not stay off of this law firm's radar. I will just state that. I think, would that be a fair assessment from both of you from this morning?
Yes.
We also spoke at length about an APPA resolution in support of a federal clean energy standard, and it really was just providing Katie with some feedback to carry to the APPA legislative meeting at the end of the month. But I will share, if that is adopted or if that moves forward following the legislative rally, I'll make sure I share that with the board. It's tangentially related to us, but definitely a big picture nationwide type of resolution and support. But it does outline kind of some protections that the public power utilities are requesting, and kind of our 2 cents on how to effectively adopt a national clean energy standard. All right. Say that we've got a lot of progress going on. I don't know if anybody has seen the old Admiral building. They are moving quick, and crews are getting ready for getting everything prepared to serve that load. Been working on the transformer that we plan to use and making sure that that transformer is up to the reliability standards that we count on. So they're just going through their due diligence and doing oil sample testing and making sure that we can provide the reliable service that they're going to count on. Most excitingly, Casey, you want to hit a little bit on the substation metering and relay project?
Yeah, it was a great project. Just finished up on it. Tuesday.
I would say I've been
I missed weeks too.
Yeah.
No, but it was a great project between GRP Engineering as well as our internal staff. We upgraded the metering for the substation transformers. So the power that comes in from ITC's transmission line is now being metered on new meters that are not obsolete. They have digital interfaces and communication capability. They are also now in our control house instead of a separate little building that sat next to the control house. So a lot of great upgrades and abilities, both for the data information collection and operation at the substation itself, but then also collecting that data for remote monitoring and SCADA usage. So it was the other part of that project was also upgrading the meter, or the protective relaying for the transformers. So all of our protective relaying in the substation is now up to the same current, let's say, generation of protection relays, which is also a very good thing to do. And yeah, it was a great project. The internal staff did excellent installing the panels. It was mainly Steve and Zach that installed the doors on the switchgear and wired up the all of the circuits for them. So they did a great job.
Yeah, sorry, I put Casey on the spot a little bit with that, but he lived that project for a month, so I was pretty confident he was going, more than a month. I'm pretty confident he could speak to it, but we'll remind the board that we budgeted about $160,000 for this project, so it's a pretty substantial capital investment. Once we have final numbers, I can report back to the board on where we landed with that, but I want to commend Casey for taking the lead on that, and Ryan for helping coordinate everything, and then also to, like Casey had mentioned, thank the guys that were out there who completed that project and really played a vital role in that. It really was a case study in great teamwork. We had multiple departments come together, we had outside vendors come together, and it was a collaborative effort to make a substantial upgrade to our substation. So I thought the project was worth spending a little bit of extra time on to just discuss, but with that, I'll move on too. So, I don't have a ton of updates. I'll provide, I think Jim kind of shared an update on the line shack. I did talk to Mike, and he echoed the same comments that we would anticipate seeing that sale get finalized in the near term. Online portal was, Julie gave the update, but we're focusing on marketing efforts and promotion efforts at this point. Big project is moving the IT, the last server to down to the Chatham facility, and a big holdup was trying to coordinate the fiber splicing efforts that were necessary. So those have been coordinated, and that's going to be picking up and should wrap up pretty quick. EV charger update has changed, but we do have the new chargers are down in the engine room right now, and we'll be working with the city to coordinate how we can provide some assistance in getting those installed. But timing-wise, it was great because I was notified after the fact that ChargePoint would no longer support those chargers, and so we didn't have the option this year. They didn't give us any notice that they would not be supporting them into the future. So timing-wise, it was a lot of foresight, and we kind of said we don't want something bad to happen in people counting on these units, and we know they're aging. We need to figure this out. So I wish we could have figured it out quicker, because right now they're not supported, but we're moving in the right direction, and timing on that was great. Cybersecurity training. Be watching emails, please. We have signed agreements and launched our cybersecurity training efforts. I've heard from some people already about them, but please keep an eye out for those, and those will be going out to anybody with a Light and Power email address. So
I got mine.
Yep.
I saw it right away too. It was just so general and so hokey
This is that email
looking.
we got that looks like a
I like-
phishing email?
Huh?
It looks like a phishing email, right? This thing.
Yeah.
Because I saw one that looked suspicious, but
Yep. And those are.
but we don't have a way to report it or anything, right? Other than
No,
just
and that's where
telling
we're going to be looking at where can we take this, and how do we build on top of this. And this is just a training, but there will, without going into the frequency of fake spam emails, but one component is fake spam emails, and I think everybody has seen them. If not, hopefully nobody watches the video, or at least nobody gets 3.5 hours into the video. But there will be more frequent fake spam. They will vary in complexity, they will vary in sophistication, and they will, everybody got the same one this time. In the future, different people will get different ones. And I had some people reach out to me and say, hey, I got this email, and I knew what it was because of it. In the future, I may not know. Nobody may know. It truly is, we can dig into it and find out, obviously.
Right.
But ultimately, you should treat them as if they're real spam, or fake, real phishing emails.
At this point, I guess I'll just do it like I did this morning, forward it to you and say, security test, question mark?
So the other thing we'll do is, we'll start to implement and provide guidance on how to, what to do when you get them. Because I don't, we're all learning and evolving with the process. But yeah, I think that, the goal is to encourage the exact communication that I received, or the acknowledgement that, yeah, this is fake, I want to do, or this is a phishing email, I'm going to do away with it. But I want to provide a little bit of an outside of Lowell Light and Power perspective, and just toot our own horn a little bit. I gave Perry a hard time a little bit. He called and said, what the heck? I said, you say you're not techie, but you just passed your first test. We really have a pretty strong cybersecurity culture here. Casey said something to everybody. Ryan said something to everybody. That's what most utilities are hoping to accomplish with this training, is encouraging that culture, encouraging communication, and it being a topic of conversation. We're leaps and bounds ahead of most utilities. I had this exact program at a previous employment, and I had one guy that it didn't matter if it said, this is a phishing email, click here so we can steal your data. He'd click on it. I mean, it was never that bad, but every single test we did, he failed. I can report we didn't have a single person fall for it. The baseline, which the baseline was a baseline, it was an elementary type email, it was very basic, but it's there to establish your starting point. How much corrective action do you need? And I mean, we still need to focus on it, and still need to make it a priority to focus on, but I want to commend everybody in, board, to the newest employee, to the longest tenured board member. There's a commitment to cybersecurity, and people understand the need. It's not, I don't want to dwell on it too much, but it's very important.
What is the ramification if somebody continues to fail miserably at it? Do you take his rights away? Do you take his laptop?
They're just going to be like publicly blamed.
What's that?
I think she said training.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
The
I
more
mean,
you
after a
click
while,
on-
you can only do so much, and
So
eventually it's going to cost you.
yeah, the hope is we don't have to address that, but the software, we can build in that if you fail, if you do click on it, it can automatically assign you relevant training. So the other piece of the cybersecurity training is we will start issuing quarterly trainings themselves. It'll be internet-based. You'll have there be on the lookout for emails. Lisa will be sending an email out. I'll send out an email kind of introducing it, and then Lisa's going to follow up with some more detailed instructions. But Lisa's taken this and ran with it, and is doing a great job with it. I want to commend her for her efforts in getting this launched, and it's very important to make this a focus and a priority. So thank you all, but be on the lookout. And if you, I think we've talked some, if you need some help getting signed in and logged in, swing by and we'll get you taken care of.
Yeah. We have
Are we
the ones
supposed to
that.
do anything with these spam emails besides ignore them?
Just ignore them for
Delete.
now.
Delete them?
One of the things I want to add at some point
Delete.
is
Yeah.
report spam. You've got the add-on that you do. I don't know much about it, to be honest. I've never rolled that piece out, but I think that's the route we need to be moving towards, is implementing some sort of reporting mechanism.
So if it's real spam, we actually
Yes.
do something, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, my company has been doing this, obviously, since I've been there, I think, but So we always get these periodic, phony emails, and so, but they have to report phishing, so you hit that, and if you, apparently, like, somebody will get a prize, like, if they're within the first 500 people to report or something, sometimes they do that, but they'll usually, the next day, they'll say, hey, congratulations, you're one of the 20% who reported it, or the 80%, or whatever number, and then they'll say, by the way, 5% actually did click on it. Which is kind of handy, and one time we had an all-company meeting, and our head of IT security said, yeah, I clicked on the last one. Which I was kind of wondering, like, should he really be admitting that, or is it nice of him to at least be honest and say, yeah, sometimes they get people, but.
I like ours as the good guy, the bad guy, and it's a gal, and this guy's, oh, go ahead and click on it. It's from your mom, you can see it, and it's not, and it's comical, and the character actors do a great job.
Sure.
Yeah, and we have to pass them,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's funny.
So there's one guy in
Yeah.
our company too, who every time he sees one of those, he clicks on it, just to be that guy.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe I'd like to do that, just, just to foil the system,
And he's so tired of getting them, he's like, I'm just gonna click on every time.
That's funny, because I got it, and I thought, I really want to click on this to test it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be the one to test it. I don't want my name attached to that.
I'll fail that one. I'll be the guy that clicks
We've
on
got
it.
2 of these already.
Sorry.
I just realized
Funny.
another one.
Hmm?
I've got 2 spam emails now.
I think we've only sent one. Unless they're identical.
No, they're different.
No, remember I said
2
Megan got
suspicious
two?
ones, but.
Well, open it,
I don't
show
know
us.
exactly.
No.
I don't know
I
exactly.
think Megan said she had one the day
Click the
before
link.
everyone got one.
Oh, there might have been some testing, or I don't know
I'm
exactly.
not sure. She
'Cause-
just said that she got one. I'm like, I didn't get it. And she goes, you didn't? Or you didn't know it was spam? I go, I don't know. But I didn't get it, I guess.
But this right here is the outcome we were hoping for. Conversations, like the one you had. Like
Yeah.
the one Casey brought up when we had a little group, get together.
Right.
You called. I don't know, I'm encouraged. It's very important. Move on, staffing. I do want to announce that we have made 2 job offers for 2 full-time ground worker positions. And both have accepted and will start over the next 3 weeks. But we have, are going to be adding, I'll butcher his last name, Matt Scheidema, I believe is his last name.
I think so too.
And then Stephen Rickard. We have given them both, we extended offers and they've accepted. So we're excited to bring on 2 additional ground workers. The budget supports, with no changes to the budget. The budget supports 2. And at the last board meeting, I kind of expounded upon, our staffing strategies and our staffing needs to be looking long-term, and I think this is the first step in making sure we have long-term staffing needs covered. So that was a good. It's great to find 2 candidates in the with the workforce we have right now. And really, it was a very difficult decision. We had 2 other candidates that both would have been great. So to have 4 candidates and the flexibility to hire 2, and when a lot of companies aren't able to find anybody, I think it speaks volumes, especially everybody that we interviewed wanted to come work for us. So I think that starts with the board, obviously, and I appreciate that in my role, the board supporting and establishing policies and that really allow us to attract quality workers. So thank you as a board.
So where about are they from?
They're both, Stephen Rickard is local. His dad is a longtime member of the community. And then Matt is he lives locally, not on our system, but he is a Lowell person. I don't know what the right term is.
Just a little area.
A Lowell area, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think he grew up here.
No,
But I think he lives here now
Yeah.
and has lived here a while,
Yeah.
it sounds like, yeah.
quite a while. So,
Yep.
yeah, very exciting news.
Mhm.
Let's see what other items. If you want to look at the engine room, it has since changed since
That's this picture.
since that picture. That was cool, by the way. Just to speak to a cool factor, that was cool. That saved a lot of work. That thing could launch gravel anywhere in that room. very cool, sorry.
More fun than a shovel.
Yeah, oh, man.
Yeah.
They very much appreciated that, and I think it was a very cost-effective mechanism, looking at the cost for it and what it would have taken and the back pain that it would have caused.
Oh, gee, yeah.
Yeah.
Want to mention in here, I talk about insurance update. Been talking with Mike over at the city about exploring some alternative insurance structures, specifically the West Michigan health insurance pool, and also a structure called a captive. The goal would be to not impact the level of benefits that we provide our employees, but looking for a structure that could potentially create rate stability over time. Insurance is fully insured coverage like we have is in my opinion, a broken business model for the recipient. Rates only go up. If you cost the insurance company money, rates go up so they can recover their money. If you don't use your insurance, rates still go up. They just don't go quite as much. It's just not long-term. We're looking for a more long-term sustainable option that can help ensure the same level of benefits moving forward. Because I don't want to. I did this previous employment. We chased the benefits every year because we'd get a crazy increase, and then you got to tweak the benefits to try and keep it within budget. You know, and it just turns into an annual reactive process, and this is a great, I'm hoping is an opportunity to have a more forward-looking view of our insurance. With that, just as a little, I do want to stop and save the date. I want to highly encourage all board members to participate in the May 20th MPPA stakeholders meeting that's going to be held at Fred Meyer Gardens here in Grand Rapids. I plan on reaching out to Mike, Jim, love to have you there. But this is a great event because it truly is for the stakeholders more so than staff itself. So there's a big push to get as much participation from local government, from boards, from any stakeholder. It'll be a good program, and it's here locally. It'll be on, I think that's a Friday.
It is a Friday.
We saw it's going to be noon to 5, I believe, but it's just in our backyard. So I will have more information, but definitely want to highly encourage participation in that.
Does it come with a free tour of the gardens then too, Jerry?
It should. That's a great question.
I know.
Yeah.
I think last time we had.
There's a
some,
lot of good things to see there.
Yeah,
They keep
afterwards you can
adding.
walk
It's
around.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Local person that Roger Ware's son, Steve.
Okay.
Was a director or some,
Oh,
but he's,
I didn't know that.
yeah, he's, went to Japan for the Japanese garden and everything, so, yeah, it's pretty high up with the
That's really neat.
Meyer Garden.
Future board items, some of the things that I wanted to take out of the governance training was trying to give the board a little heads up and trying to foreshadow some upcoming things. The board has requested we do some policy evaluation, so I've started identifying some policies with Julie. Really, Julie started identifying some policies with me more so, where we think the biggest bang for the buck is. And one thing that we see as a need for a new policy is how to handle when a customer wants to temporarily suspend service. So please, we're researching now and looking at what some other utilities do, but I would anticipate that as a future board topic. And then in terms of policies, we want to look at, definitely start with policies that have come up over the last year, and specifically want to look at the billing error policy and how to handle billing errors. We talked about that when we ran into the incident with the billing error with Impact Church. We've been very busy we've had very, very busy board meetings since then, and we wanted to get beyond that resolution so we weren't making reactionary changes to a situation. I want to view that policy in an unbiased lens, or remove some of the bias from the last incident where it was applied. And we're going to continue to look at some additional policies that we want to bring. And then we'll also look for feedback over, as we start to do these, we'll look for some feedback from the board on policies that you'd like to spend some more time reviewing. With that, I mentioned it at the governance training, but I wanted to touch base on key accounts program with Sharon's retirement. We kind of put the key accounts program, I won't say on hold, but we put it on more reactionary program where they were, everyone's instructed to reach out to me, and I filled that gap and had a lot of conversations with some of our customers. But now that we've invested in an APPA program for Lisa to participate in, she's taking that role over. She's going through a very intensive program over I think it's about a 6 to 8 week program with, I said it's only 4 weeks. It's a lot to fit in 4 weeks. Wow, I thought at least at 6, but it's a very intensive program. So we're looking at making sure we give that strategic focus the necessary and due attention. So with that, I mentioned it. Oh, I did not mention, other than that, I signed a check today that's not reflected in our current financials, but I signed a check today that will pay, Julie did too, so we both signed a check, that will pay off the solar combustion turbine installment purchase agreement. So
Yeah.
debt's coming off the books, and that's exciting. Signing the check, not so much, but the outcome is exciting. Other than that, I received digital copies of the slide deck from the governance workshop, and I'll get those out to the board. At the board meeting, or at the governance training, there was discussion on the conflict of interest policy. That isn't, we do have a conflict of interest statement in the ethics agreement for board members, but it's not, I don't believe it's currently included in our official policies, so that'll be a future board topic. But I will send out a copy of the slide deck, I'll send out a copy of the conflict of interest, and then I'll also send out some notes that contain some potential future board comments. But with the having been down 2 board members, I think I'll defer to you some, Perry, but I think that a full board discussion on that's probably warranted. So we'll probably not carry that one to the next board meeting. We'll go to April, which is typically a fairly light board meeting, and maybe introduce that conversation then. And I believe that's
The anniversaries.
yes. I love anniversaries. I do want to definitely, Ron celebrated 24 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That is a tremendous commitment. And Ron should definitely be thanked, and we should share all of our appreciation with Ron, because again, institutional knowledge is not something you can replace in a hire, and you cannot capture what's in Ron's brain over 24 years. No matter how hard you try, there is no replacing that wealth of knowledge. I mean, he can walk down the road and say, we have an underground line here, and he's right. It's not like, oh no, it's over there by Perry. If he says it's here, and he says it with confidence, take it to the bank. So I want to thank Ron for 24 great years, and hopefully a few more.
So you mentioned about hiring those new folks, you said that's a good long-term, part of our long-term strategy. So I was wondering, so somebody 24 years ago hired Ron, I wonder if they knew that was a long-term,
It's funny, because when we talked about a strategy, we specifically referenced the value we get from employees like Ron and Mark. They're our 2 longest for sure at this point.
Yeah, the longest.
But
Full time.
yeah, they both have a wealth of knowledge.
So Ron worked at Napa when Napa was where the
Commerce.
chamber, city
Yeah.
chamber is. And he was hired because of his knowledge in the parts and everything originally to help run the diesel generators that we had in this building, and since then his, his role has evolved.
Are we doing anything to gather some of that institutional knowledge and document? I mean,
The stuff that he has, you can't document.
yeah,
Honestly, I wish we could, and
Yeah.
Ryan and I have talked a lot about, how do we plan for a potential retirement of somebody like Ron, and our focus is more on procedural items right now, because Ron does a tremendous amount of stuff. His official title is safety coordinator, but that's only one of the many, many things that he does. You can talk to Julie and her staff, and they'll begrudgingly give lots and lots of compliments to Ron.
Yes.
Ron is, there's things that Ron brings to the table that he brings, he's a joy to see come through the office. He comes through almost every day because he helps, I think he does come through every day. He helps the office staff tremendously. And, he's even told me, some of his strategy is to come in and give everybody a 3-minute comedy break sometimes. Just to check out. And he does a fine job of it.
Right.
To what Craig was saying, there's institutional knowledge that you can have, but then there's also local knowledge of where you've grown up and lived and worked those
Yes.
24 years.
Sure.
You can probably never get that. And with today's younger generation, to try to get the 20, 30-year veteran to stay somewhere, it's very difficult, and those are challenges all across the board on that part of it too. So if you got somebody good at 5, 10 years, I mean, that's pretty decent today as people are waving $1 here and $2 here, and
Sure.
careers like that. So it's difficult, but
Yeah, but we talked about, can we find somebody with a goal? It may be a lofty goal, but the goal is to find somebody that's going to be here for 25 years. Because over time, they bring so much value with just time. It's definitely tough to replace.
because they're talking that about me. I have 48 years in the industry, and that to replace me, I mean,
Like 3 or 4.
one good woman will do it. That's what I tell them.
But that was my manager's report.
Okay,
And the next meeting is no longer accurate on your,
so
Yes.
next meeting will be March
15th.
15th. Board comment, Jim?
During our guidance thing that we had, I asked for some input back from staff and boards. What would you like to see me present to the city council, not just what I think is kind of cool? So going forward, or even if you got some ideas, you say, I'd really like to have you bring this up to the public while I'm speaking on behalf of Lowell and Power. I still want to get some of that feedback back, so if somebody's got something, whether it's not today but tomorrow before my next meeting, that would be great. And if not, I'll come up with a few topics of my own, but I look for that input.
I'll just say that I think your participation is greatly appreciated, and also I think you have a better perspective of what the other city council members need to know and everything. So I would rely on your knowledge and expertise of what the other council, what you think was appropriate to give to the others. I know that the slideshow and everything would be able to be available, and I think we got some pamphlets and everything, and because I think, there certainly is, it's keyed towards governance of the electric industry, but I think any good governance, a lot of key things certainly would flow over to city council, things, so.
Well, thanks.
and I'll make sure, I've got that, now that I've got the digital copy, I'll get that out to Mike, and it'll be better than scanning a copy.
And just in case there's not a quorum on the 15th, will you guys got an emergency date? Because don't you have to have to the board by April, your budget? And so if there wasn't a meeting that March 15th, for some odd reason,
We just would need to meet sometime in March, because
March.
the
Okay.
council doesn't see it, the draft budget,
until April, right?
until
Or is it May? May, okay, gotcha,
Yeah.
okay, I
The
just wanted to
draft-
make sure you guys were covered and
Yeah.
staying within
Well,
the ordinance
And
guidelines.
and to answer that, in my comments, I was going to say, I'm like 65% sure that I can change my flight and go out on the 16th rather than the 15th. So
Okay.
I hope to be here on the 15th.
Okay, all right, well then I'll be quiet.
But-
Russell.
I think Daniel and Andrew, I mean, if
Right.
it works, it works. If it doesn't,
Yeah.
it's not something that I think you should have to worry about.
And if you want to come in on Monday to review it, the whole packet, review the, so you, obviously, we got an open door, so.
Right.
but-
Great.
Yeah, so I will try to be here on the 15th. Jim, make sure you tell the council about Ron's service.
Oh, okay, I can do that, yep, I will be more than happy to do
24 years
that.
of service,
We'll
and-
talk about the portal.
And the portal,
we
and the
encourage
hard
people to get
work
out there?
of
Yeah.
Julie and her
No,
staff.
No, it's just the portal.
Yeah.
No.
That's how you want to say my name, that'd be
That's right.
better. not to say my
Okay.
name.
I don't want her to be a
Well,
target.
I want to congratulate you and your staff.
Thank you.
And my sympathies are with you on the blips that have happened, but it sounds like you guys are handling them
Yeah,
well.
well, we take each, bad thing and try to spin it and be a learning and,
Such
it's
is
always
life.
gonna be,
Yeah.
there's always gonna be something that someone doesn't like or it's, it's just part of life, so, yeah. Yeah,
And let's see, what else? Really enjoyed the governance training, and I look forward to the things that are going to come out of that. And I guess I'm done.
Andrew,
So yeah, I do want to definitely recognize Ron for 24 years. I mean, that's just impressive. And to stick with it and keep being motivated for it is also a great thing. And again, I love the training. Every time we get a staff training, I think they're awesome. I just like that insight into what you guys do, what you think about. And I think you needed one more option in one of the menus that says rant. Right, so people, if they really want to get mad, they can just send you a rant.
we do get nasty grams. There's some are not very nice, but it's part of it. We usually try to
Yeah.
figure out what's upsetting them, why, and explain, or,
Yeah.
they can choose to pay a different way, so. There's lots of ways to pay. It's not like we're forcing them to do only one way.
Yep, and we learned another one today too.
Yeah.
That on bank uses, I guess, that,
Yeah,
so I definitely appreciate your patience and all that. And I guess I also want to thank Susan and Dennis and here's his son's name.
Tom,
Tom? Okay.
I think it was.
Dennis and Tyler.
Oh, Tyler.
Okay, yeah, because it's great to have the public here listening and discussing and giving their viewpoint. Should have known better. I think Dennis works for MDOT.
Mm-hmm.
Should have known better than to make a toll road. And I guess his son must know something too, because they both made comments about, okay.
He's in government too, but I don't know what he does, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, well, Dennis has been coming once in a while to like meetings since I was on council even, and he's
Yeah,
always
he
had.
still does.
Yeah, he's always had great comments and insights and observations, and even if he doesn't agree, he tries to understand, and he's not just trying to rant and rant. So.
And he also chairs the LCTV fund and does a great job doing
Yeah.
that,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, I hope he takes me up on the opportunity to come in.
Oh, yeah.
I think he will.
I do too, I'd love to sit down with him.
Yeah, so yeah, but it's always fun when the public does come and they like to teach us as much as they like to learn themselves, so. And then I guess the last thing is really bummed that I missed the governance training. I had it in my mind that it was in the evening for some reason, so I didn't put it in my work calendar and had to do a kickoff of our new mission that we're at and could not skip out on that, so. Had I planned it ahead and put it on my calendar, I could have made it, but It's just somehow my brain.
Stuff happens.
Yeah, my brain, something happened to my brain, so. So I'm bummed, but I'll definitely take a look at the packet when you send that, or that's one when you send this in.
Okay, thank you, the board, for approving and changing the meetings. I think it will continue to give continuity to this board, because I know if we didn't, I know at least one board member felt that he would have to remove himself, and I value all of the board members that we have. So thank you for allowing that change. I think it's going to help out our, and it's not just one board member, it's going to help out our staff, it's going to help out our liaison with the council. So I think it was just a great thing to do. The workshop that we had, I thought it was very good. I thought it confirmed, for me, it confirmed a lot of things that I think that we are presently doing. Again, that was, over the years, that was my third governance workshop for the electrical industry. And again, you learn something each time, or again, I think it reassures that Lowell Light and Power is on the right track. I do want to say that I know we talked a lot about length of meetings. I think the length, I will try to move things along, but I think for our board, I think we joke about it, but I think the length is appropriate, that all the business that we have to get done. And one of the other board members brought it up, so I think Charlie gets us the information to the board to make reasonable decisions for the best interest of our ratepayers in our packets online. I think the board's priority is to discuss and deliberate so that the ratepayers and public have a sense of our decisions. One of the other board members had mentioned, when he goes to city council, and Mike Burns attended our workshop also, and he talked about how he gets all the pertinent information to the council members so that they can be well informed and have a decision in their mind at the time. This other board member of Lowell Light Power stated that he likes, or has been disappointed in that he doesn't sometimes get I think the council makes the right decisions, but he doesn't have an understanding because there isn't a lot of public deliberation. So he doesn't get a feel of why this council member voted this way or this council member voted this way. And so therefore he likes the deliberation that we go through in our meetings. I'm not saying it's one way is good or bad. It's just, and I'm on the same page with him. I like the discussions that we have. I like the discussions that Andrew, because I think it gives our ratepayers and our public an idea of what we're thinking about, how we go about deliberating, how we go about input with our guests that we have. I would encourage more guests to come and attend. But again, I just, and as the governance said, what's right for one board is not necessarily right for another board. You as a board have to decide. With that in mind, I am going to ask, because I brought it up at the Coffee with Council, and nobody wanted to touch that question or whatever, but I am going to ask that Roger Ware, which is the chairman of the Compensation Committee, to meet with myself and with Charlie, so that we can have a discussion. And I'm just publicly saying this, I mean, we get a very small, I call it stipend or whatever to, that we attend. It is, as a board member, when we sign on for this, we are expected to have approximately someplace between 12 and 18 board meetings with an occasional weekend event that we, it's not required, but I think that it's important, like when we've had open houses and different things. What I do think that needs to change is, I think when there is a meeting that takes place during, we're not all first shifters, but, or we may not all be, I don't know. But when a meeting happens during the weekday that requires board members to either take a vacation day, a personal day, or unpaid, or whatever, I do think that there should be a different compensation. And I think not just for Light and Power, but I think for any city board member or council member. And so I'm going to, because the council said, that's not up, and it still gets approved by the council, so I don't understand why they didn't want to have any kind of discussion about that, but we will. I just want to be forthright and let everybody know that I will be having a conversation, and who knows where that may lead. So with that, I think Lowell Light and Power is doing a good job, and I thought it was a great a great use of our time, and I think again, when we get everybody here, we'll have discussions about some other workshops that I think would only improve how Lowell Light and Power operates. So with that, anybody else? Anything want to chime in?
Yeah, I forgot to add that I was happy to see people in the audience tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the members was at Coffee with Council, and when could tell her frustration, and I said, could you please attend? And I told her when our meeting was, and she said, absolutely, it would work into her calendar, and absolutely. And I think she, I think it was a great conversation that we had tonight, and I think she walked away with having an understanding. And again, that's where I think we as a board differ from city council. City council takes the comments and addresses them in the future. I think a lot of times people go away still upset because they feel like they're not getting heard. And with our conversations back and forth, I think they do have a different feeling when they meet with a Lowell Light and Power.
I don't normally have a comment as a board comment section, but I have one comment if I may. Go Bengals.
Go Bengals.
Hey, I got Super Bowl scores. I just want the numbers to match.
I'm a lifelong Bengals fan. Sorry, we conclude the meeting,
Wow.
sorry.
No, that's good, that's good. You're gonna, we might be on the opposite sides.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think I'm on opposite sides of a lot of people right
And I'm
now.
probably one of those, I'm kind of a Stafford fan because of the Lions, but anyway. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn at
9:52.
9:52. There you go.
Supported.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I'm also gonna